Columbus, Georgia, this is your City Council. Mayor Teresa Tomlinson. City Manager Isaiah Hughley. Pops Barnes, District 1. Glenn Davis, District 2. Bruce Huff, District 3. Evelyn Turner Pugh, Mayor Pro Tem and District 4. Mike Baker, District 5. Gary Allen, District 6. Mimi Woodson, District 7. Walker Garrett, District 8. Judy Thomas, Post 9 at-large Counselor. John House, Post 10 at-large Counselor. And City Attorney Clifton Fay. Columbus, Georgia, this is your City Council.
And welcome to the September 11th, 2018 meeting of the City Council. We're so glad to have you with us on this special day. Certainly we have a lot of business we're going to get to, but first, of course, I want to remind everybody that today is a solemn day of remembrance. As we remember 17 years ago, the events of 9/11 and the terrorist attack on the United States of America, those many who lost their lives, those who went to fight battles far away for our country, and of course many leaving here from Fort Benning. This is of course a military community. We are one. They say one force, one fight. Well, one force, one community, one fight. So we're going to keep those in our hearts and prayers this morning, and we want to invite Reverend Emily Bell forward, who's with Forgiving Heart Christian Community Church, and I asked if she would incorporate in her many thoughts this morning to also remember the somber event of 9/11. Good morning, Reverend.
Thank you. Yes. Would you pray with me? Bow your heads, please. Dear wise and loving Creator, first let me say thank you on behalf of all who are gathered here today. Thank you for your many and abundant blessings. Thank you for life itself. Thank you for the ability to be involved in useful work and for the honor of bearing appropriate responsibilities. Today, on the 17th anniversary of the terrorist attacks of 9/11, grant us the wisdom to remember the lessons from that tragic day. On that day, we were all one. There was no distinction between black, white, brown, or red, no distinction between Christian, Muslim, or Jew, no distinction between gay or straight. We were humans helping other humans. As we look back and recall where we were, who was with us, and how we felt on that fateful day, may those vivid memories compel us to acts of kindness, words of love, and demonstrations of community. May the numerous images of those helpers on that day, the firefighters, police officers, medical people, pastors, office workers, and ordinary citizens, be the icons that inspire us to be helpers too. The many texts and voicemails of I love you and you are everything to me assure us that love always has the last word, but we must never wait to say it. We pray for those whose lives were forever changed on September 11th, 2001. Grant comfort to those who grieve. Strengthen those who struggle with questions that remain unanswered. And we thank you for the people who every day put their lives in danger in order to protect us and to serve others. We pray for all first responders, for medical personnel, police officers, firefighters, and others who never know what a shift at work will bring on any given day. Today, I pray for our mayor, for the various levels of city officials, and this assembled council. I pray for the agenda set before them today. Oh God, I ask that you would graciously grant our leaders wisdom to govern among the conflicting interests and issues of our times, a sense of welfare and true needs of our people, a keen thirst for justice, and confidence in what is good and fitting and right, the ability to work together in harmony even where there is honest agreement, personal peace in their lives and joy in their task. Bless their efforts and guide them in decisions that would benefit those who live and work all around our beloved city of Columbus. Amen.
Amen. Reverend Bell, I don't think anybody can improve upon that. Thank you so very much.
Thank you for the honor.
Appreciate you. All right, and so we've called forward the best of the best to come give us the Pledge of Allegiance on this special day. We have Clubview Elementary School. They're ready to go, so please come forward if you would assemble here. And as they do assemble and prepare, if you all would stand and prepare for them to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Excellent job. All right. Well, we want to make sure that we know who just delivered that great Pledge of Allegiance, so we're going to pass the microphone around. If you all would state your name and how old you are.
My name is Davis Van Beber, and I'm 10 years old.
My name is Sam Black, and I am 10 years old.
My name is Otis Watch, and I'm 10 years old. My name is Charlie Martin, and I'm 10 years old.
My name is Riley Martin, and I'm 10 years old. My name is Carly Fessel, and today I just turned 11.
All right.
My name is Emily Carlisle, and I'm 10 years old.
My name is Lewis O'Grady, and I'm 10 years old.
Wonderful. Well, happy birthday. My goodness. Let's give them all a round of applause, but particularly the birthday girl. Well, thank you again for coming and helping us out on this special day, and we hope we can call on you again soon. Is that all right? Great. Thank you all very much. And we want to recognize the teachers and the parents. If you all would stand up, any administrators, principals, let's give them a round of applause, folks. Thank you all. Have a great day. All right. We're going to go ahead and jump into our agenda. We first have a quick introduction. I want to call forward Elizabeth Barfield. She wants to introduce a guest we have with us today.
Good morning, Council, and good morning, Mayor. I'd like to introduce Connie Harris to our council meeting this morning. She is the Deputy Clerk of Council in Hamilton, Georgia, and she has very happily agreed to help us this morning while Lindsay's away at training. So just like to introduce Connie.
Well, let's welcome Connie, if we would. Connie, thank you so much. We have such a great region and mutual aid agreements for all kinds of things, and so appreciate the clerk aid today. So, all right, we also are going to shake up our agenda just a little bit this morning. We're so pleased to have with us many elected officials, other appointed officials of our court system. We've got Sheriff Donna Tompkins. We've got Superior Court Clerk Shasta Glover. We've got our Chief Judge with us, Gil McBride. Thank you all so much for being here, and many of their critical staff members too. So thank you all. We want to turn it over to the City Manager. He's going to bring forward a presentation that he has on his agenda so they can get back to operating the wheels of justice. Mr. City Manager. Thank you. Hold on just a second. There we go.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and good morning. We do have a number of elected officials here. I am going to have Deputy City Manager Pam Hodge to come forward to talk about court management system, and they are here because they are interested in the court management system, and I believe they are here because they support moving forward with this court management system. And so what she is going to do is update you on the court management system today. We want to answer all of your questions. They are here in the audience and would be willing to come forward to answer any questions that council or mayor you would have. And at the next meeting, the fourth Tuesday at 5:30, we will be bringing the court management system back before this body to ask you to approve moving forward with it. And so we would like to answer your questions today, and then, of course, if you've got questions between now and the fourth Tuesday, let us know and we'll get you a response. And so with that, Deputy City Manager Pam Hodge will talk about the court management system.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. We have been coordinating the replacement of an integrated court management system for several years now. The system that we're currently on is from 1988, so it's 30 years old, and it is definitely due for replacement. There are a lot of duplications that go on between offices and departments currently. It's currently housed on the mainframe, and as the IT director, Forrest Tolley, has told you over the last several years, getting these systems off the mainframe is our end goal. Getting things on an internet-based platform is the goal, and moving things off of the mainframe. The replacement of this system, the first year payment is part of the FY19 budget, so the first payment's already been approved and in the budget, and Angelica Alexander will be coming forward at the conclusion to lay out the financing for this particular replacement. We've had numerous offices, agencies, departments involved in this evaluation for a new court management system. A lot of them are represented here today. And for those of you that are here on the court management system, if you could just stand up. So a lot of offices are represented here today and support the replacement of this system. We've done a lot of research. The agencies and offices have done site visits. We've done demonstrations. The vendors here today are going to give a brief overview of the court management system. A lot of them have visited other jurisdictions that have this particular system to see how it operates in the real world. So they all have done their research for their particular piece of the process for an integrated court management system. Today, we just want to provide an overview to council of the court management system and answer any questions. If there's any of the offices that are here today that would like to make any comments, they're welcome to do so as well. So for now, I'm going to call forward Megan O'Leary. She is with Tyler Technologies. The product that we're looking at is called Odyssey, and she's going to give just a brief overview of that system and its capabilities. So Megan.
Perfect. Good morning, Council and Mayor. Thank you for your time this morning. Just really quickly want to speak about what we've been doing over the past couple of years, looking at the Odyssey court system. Currently, the courts and justice systems have one unified system. Like Ms. Hodge mentioned, it's from 1988. And back then it was very cutting edge because all of the products were one piece of software, which now sits on your mainframe. And so the city still has that need to have a unified system, albeit a little more updated. And so that's what we're looking at today. Odyssey is a single unified system. So it's one piece of software, and it covers all the different offices, which include the jail, prosecutors, public defender, the courts, and the clerk's office. What that means to be one single piece of software is all of the kind of important parts, the task management, the credit card management, messaging, authentication, all of the core pieces of functionality are one single piece of software. What that means to your citizens and in the real world is that they have one single experience whenever they need to interact with the sheriff's office, the clerk's office, municipal court, recorder's court, probate court, etc. They're having a single uniform experience. To talk a little bit about Tyler and the Odyssey software as a partner. We are a very stable company. We're publicly traded. We've been around for over 30 years ourselves. We're one of the most innovative companies according to Forbes magazine. We've had solid growth year over year, and we are also investing about $48 million a year into research and development. What that would mean to the City of Columbus is that we're always adding new functionality to our products and innovating on the platforms that we serve our citizens with. To look across the U.S., we have about 50% of the population, which includes 12 states, and also over 120 million U.S. residents are served by the Odyssey system. In Georgia, we are also a partner with about 50% of the population, and it includes 17 unified solutions. Some of our current customers that we serve are Fulton County, DeKalb County, Forsyth County, Gwinnett County, Chatham County, and Clayton County. And so this includes over 4.5 million Georgia citizens that are living in an area supported by the Odyssey solution. The other nice thing to point out is that it is a perpetual license, which means once the City of Columbus is a partner with us, that it is a long-term partnership, and as we do that research and development of the product, the consolidated government always gets to enjoy those benefits without having to pay additional licensing costs. So that's the basics about Odyssey. Are there any questions for me?
We have Counselor Thomas. Oh, no, okay, I'm sorry. All right, anyone else? Anyone with any questions? All right, thank you. Pam?
Thank you.
So at this time, the Finance Director, Angelica Alexander, is going to come forward and just give council an overview of the cost of this system and how it would be spread out over the fiscal years.
Good morning, Madam Mayor, Council. So as Deputy City Manager Hodge mentioned, the cost for the first year's payment is already budgeted. We've sort of collected that amount over the past 3 fiscal years. So we do have year one costs already included, but the total implementation costs for this particular project is $4,164,564. From a fiscal year standpoint, as far as the payments are concerned, our first payment will be made in FY20. The annual cost is essentially fixed for the next 5 years at $1.6 million. And then subsequent to FY24, at that point, we are no longer paying the implementation costs, which we've broken up over 5 years. At that point, we'll just be paying our annual maintenance fee. And so you see there the estimated annual SaaS fee. SaaS is a platform, as the Deputy City Manager mentioned, that we're trying to migrate to. It's an internet-based platform, and it means that we're hosted. And I really would like for the IT Director to really sort of talk about what the SaaS means from an IT standpoint.
SaaS stands for Software as a Service, and what basically it means, you know, when I first got here, we had to do several $1 million of upgrades to the data center. About every 5 to 7 years, you would need to do several $1 million of upgrades to the data center. And that doesn't include the servers and stuff. That is like the switches and the main parts of the data center. Software as a Service is where it's kind of cloud-based, and by cloud, it's stored off-site, and that we no longer are responsible for providing like the air conditioning, the electricity, the servers, the services. All we'll need in the data center is a reduced presence. So what we're trying to do over time is, which most counties are, control our costs by, rather than to get these one-time huge bumps, we'd rather like pay as we go, and a SaaS agreement kind of keeps everything up to date. One thing nice with SaaS, a software as a service, is that you are always on the latest version. So you always are on the latest patches, the latest securities, the latest features. And that's really important today because a system that you put in now in 6 months, if it didn't have updates, it would be vulnerable to attacks. And you hear about that all the time. And people are always worried about that. This is one way to mitigate it. It doesn't prevent it, but it sure makes it a lot nicer if you never have to worry about your hardware, your software, or really the services provided around that. And that's what software as a service is. And all of our systems have moved to that platform, with the exception, I think, of a few minor systems that are kind of homegrown. But all of our major systems are enterprise systems, and they're SaaS, software as a service system agreements. Any questions on what software as a service?
I would like to open it up, and I know there's several of our elected officials here, if they would like to make any comments, the Chief Judge, the Sheriff, Clerk of Courts.
Yes. Yes, Judge McBride, Ms. Glover, if or the Sheriff Tompkins.
Well, and Madam Mayor, all of those elected officials and/or appointed officials supporting this software, I'd ask that you just come and sit up near Judge McBride.
And we do have representatives from the District Attorney's Office. Obviously, Julia Slater, our District Attorney, is in court this morning, so, but she did send representatives. So.
And Madam Mayor, because this has been an effort and supported by all of these people, and it's very, very critical. It's important to the work that they do on behalf of the citizens on a day-to-day basis.
Yes. And Judge, before you get started, Councilor Thomas had a quick question she wanted to.
Ms. Hodge, on the list of participating departments and offices, I did not see the Recorder's Court. Is Recorder's Court part of this?
Yes, Recorder's Court is part of this. We left them
Yes,
off.
and there's
I
the
apologize.
Recorder's Court Administrator.
Donna is here as well.
Hello, Donna, good morning. Thank you for being here. Judge, good morning.
Well, I want to thank the city manager and the assistant city manager and the mayor and council and Mr. Tolley and all involved for going forward. I guess especially the finance director needs thanks because she has a pretty important role to play in all of this, as do you. So what I'm going to say just briefly is I think it would be good to consider how much the world has changed in the last 30 years, how much the caseload has changed from Muskogee County, the nature of the cases, the number of multi-defendant criminal cases, the complexity of those cases, just the case law that dictates the various procedures that the courts must go through on a pretrial basis, the different hearings that must occur. We have motions that we now have to hear and that we have to consider that were unheard of 30 years ago because the Supreme Court had not decided those cases and decided that those were important parts of the criminal justice system to address. And so it has become increasingly difficult to manage the complexities of a modern urban caseload, which is what we basically have here in Columbus. There's a reason why the other urban and metro counties in Georgia have moved toward this. So I think I'm not alone when I say I salute you and I thank you for what you're doing. We right now are in a position, and I've been, while we have been in this transitional period with the courthouse, I've been providing various officials with data on various pressure points in the system, such as indictments, the productivity of the grand jury, which, by the way, is where our district attorney is today. She's with the grand jury of Muskogee County, the jail population. And if you really ask the sheriff's office or the clerk's office or I guess the clerk's office, certainly the sheriff, or the DA's office for that matter, for a list of, say, persons who have been in jail for 45 days or more without being indicted. If that's your query, you'll wind up with 3 different lists. And the reason for that is because it's not integrated. The people who are inputting the data on the front end are different. They're using different priorities. And if you ask which judge the cases are assigned to, then you really create a new level of complexity. And right now, we're having to do everything manually. It ties up an awful lot of hours, of man hours. Our circuit administrator, Mr. Berry, is here, and that's a key part of his job, is just helping us monitor these cases. And so it will be good for us to move to a new level that's more attuned to today's realities and how the criminal justice system works. So I thank you. If y'all have any questions for me, I will be glad to stick around, but I think you have the people who can answer the more important questions here right now. So again, thank you.
Thank you, Judge. Well, other than amen, Madam Clerk, Shasta Glover, would you like to say anything? You're good. Great, thank you. And Sheriff Tompkins?
I just have to agree with him. You know, sometimes the judge will ask for information, and many times we have to go literally one by one through the inmates in the county jail, which as of today is 1,115, to find that information. The first time he asked me for something, I said, okay, Judge, but it'll be a minute. And I think he thought I was being, whatever. I said, oh, no, you don't understand. I have to go one by one to get you that information. And we did get it to him, but what was designed 30 years ago was great. It's a great idea to be unified. The way that this was designed, but it's time for new technology, and I'm 100% behind it.
Great, thank you. And from the DA's office, anything additional? Anybody? Okay. And
Solicitor.
solicitor, I'm sorry, yes. Anything, okay. And also, anything from Recorder's Court in addition to what's already been said? Donna, did you have any? 100%. Okay, great, thank you. All right.
Well,
Mr.
it's
City
not
Manager.
often we get unanimous
Yeah,
votes.
right. That's why I wanted to roll through it just to hear the yeses, yes.
Yeah. But, Madam Mayor, if there are other questions, we will answer them. If not, we will bring it back on the fourth Tuesday at 5:30 meeting, and
Okay.
we will be asking council for a vote.
All right, well, thank you all for your hard work. Thank you for your cooperation in this process, and certainly to staff, Pam, Angelica, Forrest, and all of those that have been involved. Thank you so much. This will be a very important milestone for our city. All right, is that it for now?
That's it,
Mr.
Madam
City
Mayor.
Manager?
Yes.
Okay, all right, we're back on regular schedule now. So you can follow your agenda, and we're going to call on Betsy Covington, who's President and CEO of our Community Foundation of Chattahoochee Valley, and she wants to speak to us about a very special program she has called On the Table. And we'll let, if y'all will take all your great conversations outside. Okay, a lot of fellowship in the back of the room.
That sounded like a very important conversation, and I'm glad I got to hear that presentation, so thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Council, Mayor, City Manager. I appreciate the chance to be with you this morning. As the Mayor said, I'm Betsy Covington. I think I'm no stranger to you guys, and hopefully come before you periodically with opportunities to help move our city forward. As you probably know, last year saw the first incarnation of On the Table in our community. We are one of 10 cities around the country that are rolling this project out as a way to help people connect better to each other. And I heard the Reverend's excellent prayer this morning and loved how she focused on love and people's connections to each other that they felt on that awful day 17 years ago. Hard to imagine. I also was struck by those cute students from Clubview, of whom I was one, seemingly not very long ago. 17 years ago, indeed. Thank you. As we try to build a city that is better connected, whose citizens feel connected to our community and to each other, On the Table is something that we all ought to be trying to find a way to make ourselves a part of. So with that, I'm going to ask you to please roll a quick video that'll tell you a little bit more about the opportunity. As many of you know, the Community Foundation, we enable and promote philanthropy that inspires, facilitates, and fosters a vibrant and engaged Chattahoochee Valley. We believe that each of us has the power to make our community even better.
On the Table makes you think. It makes you empathize. It makes you react. It makes you pause. All in the space of about an hour. That's the cool thing about it. And this is really about ideas. It's about ideas about improving Columbus and the Chattahoochee Valley. And then at the end you get just this big, huge document that the University of Illinois Chicago is going to provide to us from all the survey participants. And because of the large number of tables we're doing, there's going to be thousands of people contributing opinions. And you know, data sets don't always come that large. So it'll be a real working document.
As we started to talk, you could kind of see what everyone's passions were. As the conversation started to grow and grow, we started to kind of go in different directions. We didn't just stick to the script that was on the sheet. We had an individual here from right from the start, and she was talking about items she already had, and some of the people were mentioning new organizations, and she was like, there's already organizations here that you guys can tap into, as opposed to trying to recreate the wheel. We're finding out about organizations that, not coming here, we would have known nothing about.
You can't get answers if you don't talk about things. So this was the very first step, to kind of put it on the table, and to bring those issues to light. I think the more people we have talking about kind of hot topic issues, the more likely we are to spur some new perspective or new way of looking at things. So that way, you know, a month down the line, a year down the line, 10 years down the line, we will start to make some progress in terms of handling some of these sticky issues, like moving our crime statistics in the right direction down, like moving our educational numbers in the right direction up, where we have greater numbers of students that are graduating high school that are going on to higher education, and therefore in reinvesting that knowledge back into the community, not leaving.
Let the conversation go wherever. Don't follow a path. Just talk.
This is what makes us a strong, healthy community. There is health in open conversation. There's health in showing kindness and acceptance to each other.
People are excited to hear about different perspectives. I think oftentimes, you know, we don't understand the way a person may live, some of the challenges that they face every day.
Without these events, you don't have any information to go off of that'll actually make a difference within the community. I think these are key points that you have to focus on, and with that data we can take and actually make a difference.
I think it was very inspiring, and people were leaving today saying we need to do this more often. We need to be talking more to each other. So I think that's the big takeaway.
What I want to make sure that each of you understands is that On the Table's success depends on all of us to host tables, to attend tables. We are asked all the time at the Community Foundation, so where is this table? And the beauty of On the Table is it happens all throughout that day, October 23rd, all over the Chattahoochee Valley. People will be coming together in small groups of sort of 8 to 12 people around a table over a meal. Now, a meal can be a 4-course meal with china and silver. It can be coffee and donuts. It can be, hey, let's meet in the park and everybody bring a brown bag. Doesn't have to be elaborate, but when you share a meal with each other, the tenor of the conversation changes, and people are honest with each other. The Community Foundation will put On the Table out there this year again and next year. We're one of this group of 10 communities around the country that are piloting this. But it's not our program, and you'll hear me say this a lot. We are making this possible for the people in our community, but what they do with it is up to them. And what I would urge you to do is think of ways that you can involve your constituency in On the Table. We believe that everyone's voice matters. We want people who normally don't feel invited to the table to feel invited to this project. We want them to find a way to participate, to talk to each other, to listen to each other, to learn a little bit more about the way that we live in our community and what our dreams might be. Each of you has a packet in front of you that has information, the data that was gathered last year as a result of On the Table. There will be a survey again this year after the event. So it sort of has two pieces, the conversation, and then the survey dives a little bit more deeply into what people think about the community and what they'd like to see our priorities be. You have the summary in your packet. For those of you watching on television or here in the audience today, by going to onthetablechat.com, you too can download all of this data. You can manipulate it, you can look at it, you can register to host a table this year or to participate at one of the public tables that'll be happening all throughout our community. We are thrilled with the response so far this year. We have way more super hosts who have signed on to host than we had last year. And a super host is an organization that has committed to host 15 or more tables. I am really proud and grateful to tell you that CCG, Columbus Consolidated Government, was one of the first to sign on as a superhost again this year. So thank you for that. Thank you for seeing value in our conversations with each other. We're having a great time working with representatives of your government as we look for ways to have these tables be effective. But each of you can do this too in your own constituent neighborhoods. So look for ways to play with it. Talk to us at the Community Foundation if you need ideas. Let's make October 23rd a great day for each of us to talk to each other better and listen to each other better. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Yes, we do. We have Councilor Woodson.
Good morning, Betsy. Thank you for being here this morning.
Absolutely.
I have a question for you. The individual groups that meet, what happens to that data? Is somebody from the On the Table organization part of those group conversations? Can you tell me a little bit more?
Yep. So each host who signs on to host a table, we like to say if you sign on to host, you're in charge of your table. You're in charge of who's invited. Are you having it with your neighbors? Are you having it with your coworkers? Are you putting it up on our website so that anybody can register and it's a public table? That's up to each host. We ask that the host share a little bit with us after the conversation about what some of the topics were, but I want to be clear, this is less about people reporting out to us than it is the value of each of the people around the table having that conversation, right? So the table talk is less about data gathering and more about connectivity, if that is helpful. The host will be urging each person who comes that day to complete the survey, and they'll get that electronically afterwards. There's a number they can text and get the survey back as a link. And data will be coming back to us a lot more quickly than it did last year, in a matter of weeks rather than months, so that'll be good.
Okay, well, thank you.
Does that help?
Yes, and I think for the viewing public or anyone that's hearing it for the first time would be interested can know that their voice will still be heard, even if they're in their own groups.
Yes.
Making discussions, because listening to it, it's wonderful, and I've been to it, and very diverse, and we've learned from each other. But if someone who's never been there and decides to host it, I wouldn't want them to think that they're just meeting just to talk.
Right.
To know that this information is being shared and people can get a better understanding of what's going on in our community.
I think that's a great point. And to sort of reinforce that, you guys should know that everybody who hosts a table gets a host toolkit that has conversation starters for their table. But you can also make a table about something specific if you want to do that. You don't have to use our prompts. This year, the host toolkits will be geared a little bit more toward action. So if your group wants to just talk, that's fabulous and fine. There's value in that. But if they're ready to kind of move toward an action, either as individuals or as part of that group, there'll be information in the toolkit about how each of them could become a little bit more civically engaged and how things like that do happen in our community.
Okay. All right, we have Councilor Huff.
Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm great, thanks.
I participated last year in 2 different groups.
Good.
Will they be reaching back out to me, or do I need to reach out to them? Or will I know which
Councilor
group?
Huff, don't ever wait for people to reach out to you. Please, if you found those, I'm not sure specifically which 2 you mean, but if you found value in those groups, let the people know who organized them and urge them to do it again. Okay. I love that you brought up that you went to more than one, because that is absolutely a possibility, and I'll promise you that every conversation you take part in that day will be utterly different from the one before it. Okay. I went to 7 last year, which I'm not sure I'd really recommend, but they were all moving, informative, connective experiences. So yes, do what you can, please, to urge those to happen again.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. And we have the city manager.
Madam Mayor, thank you. We participated, the CCG, last year, and I personally participated in at least 2 sessions myself. One was at the Government Center and one here at the City Services Center. And I think I share with Betsy Covington that I had one citizen, and Mayor, you were here, I know, at the City Services Center and participated in one, in a session here, but I had one citizen to comment after the On the Table, and I shared it with you, that it was the best open discussion, small group discussion that she had ever had with city officials and with the community in all of her years here in Columbus. The best, she said. And I shared that with you. And so I share that to say that this is something good for all of Columbus. And so I am going to ask our CCG TV manager to pull this piece from our live airing and play it on CCG TV, and do want to extend an opportunity to you to do short commercials to make people aware through CCG TV, invite them out to participate, because it is good discussion. It's good for all of Columbus. So wanted to extend that to you.
Thank you. We say yes enthusiastically. We appreciate the opportunity. And, you know, you guys have worked with the Community Foundation enough to know we're not about doing things to the community. We're about doing things with the community. And I think On the Table is a wonderful example of people who can find their voices and become better connected to their communities. Last year, according to the data we gathered, 71% of the respondents said they connected with one or more attendees at their table that they hadn't already known. And that's really good for a community. When you can reach out and become and feel a connection to somebody that you hadn't had before and have, as you describe, a very real conversation, there is immense value in that. So thank you, City, for your support of this. Please, each of you as counselors, find ways to encourage it to happen again. We had 6,500 people participate in On the Table last year, and we mainly want to hear that people who don't normally feel included in our community feel welcome at these tables. So thank you for your help with that.
Thank you, Betsy, so much. We're so excited and look forward to that. And hearing you speak about that just reminded me to put in a plug. We're actually having the last Let's Talk with the Mayor, which is completely different, but somewhat similar. It'll be our 30th. Right here in this building, so the City Services Center here off of Macon Road, in the community room, and there's going to be food and music, so it'll be a little celebratory effect, but also certainly our administrative staff, department heads, public safety, any elected officials that would like to come, and we're being sponsored by 3 different neighborhood associations. So that is next Thursday, September 20th, here in the City Services Center, at 6 p.m., the last Let's Talk. So number 30, if y'all could come, everybody's welcome, of course. So
that's fabulous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and look forward to attending On the Table. So
Thank you.
all right. Moving on in our agenda, we have a second presentation. We want to call forward John Williams, who's the Deputy Chief Appraiser, and he would like to speak with us on regarding an update on the 2018 property assessment appeals. Good morning, John.
Good morning, Madam Mayor, members of council, Mr. City Manager. It's been a while. It's good to see you all again. I've been asked to give you an update briefing on the 2018 appeals. As of today or yesterday morning when I did this query, 1,289 active appeals in our system right now. If you recall, last year about this time we were talking about 10,000 or more appeals. So it's a welcome decrease in our office. I'm sure you will all agree that represents 1.85% of the taxable real properties here in the county. The value in dispute is right at 0.5%, and we talked about that a lot last year, but I'll just, that value in dispute term becomes important when you reach certain limits through the numbers of appeals that we receive. We're nowhere near those limits and didn't even approach or get to that limit last year in the 11,007 appeals that we had. So it's a term that I speak of, but it probably will not become important at all this year. Difference between the return value if the taxpayer makes a return in 2018 If they don't make a return in 2018, it's the difference between the 2017 notice of assessment value and the 2018 notice of assessment value. Again, that's right at 0.5% of the total taxable digest. Of the 1,289 appeals, 966 or 75% of those appeals are recommended for a reduction. The other 25%, and you see 15 are recommended as no change, but when we have a recommended reduction, for those of you who aren't familiar with it or don't recall, when we get a reduction recommendation from our staff that's approved by the Board of Assessors, we send out what we call a 30-day letter or a change notice of assessment, and the taxpayer has an additional 30 days to appeal that reduction in value. After 30 days, those letters expire, so we've had 59 of those letters expire already this year. 193 or 15% are recommended as no change. The other 10%, if you're doing the quick math, has been certified to the Board of Equalization already. So once we do that, the administrator there at the Board of Equalization takes over the scheduling of those BOEs. We are currently scheduled the week of October 15th is our first round of BOEs scheduled already, and we anticipate those BOE hearings to last through mid-December of this year, and it is our goal and hope that we are through with those BOEs by the end of December this year, as opposed to running into May and June of this year like we did. That represents the update brief for the 2018 appeals, and I will take your questions, if any.
All right, any questions of John? All right, doesn't look like there's any questions at this time, John, but they know where they can find you.
That's right.
So thank you so very much
Thank you.
for coming, and thank you for all your hard work.
Oh, you're welcome.
It's been
Thank you.
yeoman's work, and we appreciate it. All right. Next, we have minutes. We have the minutes from August 14th, 2018 executive session and August 28th, 2018 council meeting. I entertain a motion to approve. And second, any edits or changes? Okay. All those in favor, please state aye. Great. And we'll move into the city attorney's agenda this time. Mr. Fay.
Thank you, Mayor. We do have a few business items to cover this morning. First one up is a zoning vote. This is property at Old Guard Road going to residential office. It's ready for action.
We've got a motion and second for approval. Is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, you may record your votes electronically. And it passes.
Passed. Okay, Mr. Mize, thank you for being here. Next item is the 9056 Veterans Parkway Life Plan Community. It's ready for action.
Okay, we've got a request for an abstention by Councilor Walker Garrett. As he made clear last time, he has a conflict in this, and so we'll need to vote on that. Can I get a motion for abstention, please? We've got a motion from the Mayor Pro Tem and a second from Councilor Woodson. Any discussion related to the motion? All those in favor, please state aye. Are there any opposed? Okay, so I'm sorry, Mr. Fay, did you have anything further to add to the second reading?
No, ma'am. This
Okay.
is Joel Womack petition. It's ready for action.
Okay, can I get a motion, please?
Second.
And there's a second. Any discussion on this item? All right, hearing none, you may record your votes, please. Okay, and it does pass.
That passes. Can I jump with council's permission to item 4? Just be a quick vote on the Public Finance Authority. They're out of Wisconsin. Ms. Shani Locken is here from Atlanta, Parker Poe Law Firm. You had one of these about a month ago for a different facility financing. This will be for the benefit of Brookside Glen, but it's ready for adoption.
Okay, any questions related to this? Is there a motion? Got a motion, is there a second? All right, any further discussion? Mayor Pro Tem, did you have? Okay, if you would. Mayor Pro Tem.
As I understand this, there's nothing obligating Columbus to anything, right?
That's right. There's absolutely no city obligation for tax money or anything else. This is simply so this facility can obtain some federal tax exemptions.
All right. Is that clear up, Madam Mayor Pro Tem? Are you good? Okay. All right, you may record your votes electronically. And it does pass. Thank you.
All right, thank you for being here this morning. We'll go back to item 3 now, Mayor. This is the short-term rental regulation amendment to the Unified Development Ordinance. Had a split recommendation. Planning Advisory Commission recommended denial, but Planning Department recommends approval. This is for short-term rental units of less than 30 days. And if I could, I'd like to call up Deputy City Manager Pam Hodge first, who wants to make some remarks, and we've got others here, I think, in support of this item.
Good morning. I'm going to defer to Peter Bowden, President of CCBB. As you may recall, this initiative was brought to us by Council for us to look into how do we handle the Airbnb and short-term rental facilities within our city. And so we had come back to Council on July 10th and gave you a presentation about the different components of this ordinance. It did go to PAC. PAC denied the request, and we've provided in your packet some of the questions that PAC had and our responses to those questions. But Peter Bowden has been working with the hoteliers on this for quite some time, as well as discussions at Council for quite some time about how we address the issue of short-term rentals in our community. So I'll let Peter Bowden make some comments first.
Thank you all. Good morning. I want to thank you all for considering this ordinance. The document that you have today to consider represents almost 2 years' worth of research in order to create a comprehensive and fair ordinance that creates a better business environment because it establishes checks and balances for those operating short-term vacation rental units in our city. It protects the owners of those units. It protects the neighborhoods that those units are operating or located. It also protects the visitor who chooses to stay in a short-term vacation rental unit. This ordinance also, more importantly, levels the playing field in our city. As you know, hoteliers have invested heavily in Columbus, and these businesses are subject to high standards in order to operate. They're required to obtain a business license, they undergo a tremendous amount of inspections, and they remit taxes because they operate as a business in Columbus. Currently, short-term vacation rentals are not held to any local standard. There's no assurance of safety. There's no oversight in case there are problems, whether it's with the unit, the neighborhood, the visitor. There's no recourse. No business license is required. And no taxes are collected, even though short-term vacation rentals are operating much like hotels and bed and breakfasts do in our city. They provide transient housing for people coming to our town for less than 30 days. The most important part of this ordinance is not anti-short-term vacation rental. Everyone who's worked on this over the past 24 months realizes that this type of experience is the new trend. It's a popular vacation trend across the country. Staff looked at several cities across the country, Nashville, New Orleans, Savannah, and some of those cities that have local ordinances, these ordinances are much, much tougher than what we're considering today. The language that you have is a good compromise, and it's meant to be fair, and we would encourage that you move this ordinance forward.
Okay. We have the city manager.
Madam Mayor, I just wanted to I want to bring to your attention on the Georgia Municipal Association legislative agenda. They are also addressing short-term rentals or vacation rentals. And I could put it on the overhead, but I'll just read briefly. GMA further supports local control of regulation of short-term rentals as necessary for quality of life, public safety, and a competitive lodging marketplace. GMA supports the legal use of properties as short-term or vacation rentals by individuals licensed to do business and pay the appropriate state and local taxes. And then they further explain, again, GMA, short-term or vacation rentals are popular in certain areas of the state, which often creates commercial competition inside residential neighborhoods. Individuals rent sofas, rooms, or entire properties through online websites such as VRBO and Airbnb. Individuals who regularly let property for rent are operating a lodging business illegally. The operation of lodging rooms requires following laundry sanitation guidelines under the Department of Public Health, as well as state and local building regulations for occupancy and use. Unregulated, unlicensed short-term rental providers are undermining the hotels, motels, and traditional bed and breakfasts around the state by not paying taxes or following health and safety standards. Parking, noise, and illicit substance abuse are documented. Recurring issues with short-term rental properties in unregulated settings. In 2015, the Georgia House of Representatives Study Committee on Short-Term Rental Providers recommended the following. The committee understands the diversity present in Georgia cities and counties and recommends that regulations regarding the operation of short-term rentals be made at the local level. And that is simply what we are trying to do. And this is on the legislative agenda for Georgia Municipal Association for the 2019 legislative session this coming January.
Well, I think, so we don't get confused, what that shows is that we're headed in the right direction, but we can't yet depend on that necessarily passing.
Absolutely.
Right, and should it pass, of course, it would be reconciled with what we've done. I mean, the law would reconcile the two. So let's see here. We've got Councilor Thomas.
I have a lot of questions, so you folks may as well get comfortable. This is a 5-page document. And I would like to ask, and I don't know, there's several people in the room who can answer some of these questions, so if you're it, just come to the mic and answer the question. I'd like to know really what was the impetus to create this UDO change? What was the purpose of doing this? Who brought this to the city?
I don't know exactly who brought it, but I know Councilor Henderson had requested that we review and look at a short-term rental ordinance. And so that's where it started when we were involved. That came through CCVB and also Councilor Henderson.
We have had a number of, several bed and breakfast facilities in Columbus for a number of years. Have there been any problems with those bed and breakfasts? Have they one of the things that one of the themes that I got in this document is that there is an assumption that there's going to be wrongdoing. And my question is, has there been wrongdoing by the current bed and breakfast folks?
We'll call on you. No, I think are you asking questions of staff at this time?
Generally staff, but, whatever.
I own the only bed and breakfast that's legally running in this city, so I would love to answer your question.
All right, it's all right with me.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Mamie Pound, and I own the Rothschild Pound House Bed and Breakfast. As I said, it is the only bed and breakfast in this city that is operating within the law as defined by our city UDO, which defines bed and breakfast homestays as overnight lodging up to 4 rooms. This is already on the books, and it's been on the books for over 20 years. The Rothschild Pound House opened in 1995 with only 3 rooms. Since then, every year, I've been required to an inspection by the fire marshal for safety, the health department for safety, and a fee of $325 a year, the gas-fired heating equipment inspection for safety for $375 a year. I am forced to pay $25 a month for fire monitoring system for safety. I am forced to pay $350 a year for fire alarm inspection system safety every year. I have to buy a business license for $1,200 to $2,000 a year. I have to collect hotel motel taxes and sales tax. If I do not collect hotel motel taxes and pay them in a timely manner, I can be dragged into court. If I fail on any of the above, my business can be shuttered. I have to have an employee ID number with the IRS. I have to have workman's comp. I have to file and pay the Georgia Department of Labor quarterly and yearly, even though I only have 2 employees. I have to pay commercial rates for water, power, gas, and insurance. In 1996, several surrounding houses were converted to B&Bs to accommodate the overflow for the '96 Olympics. One, in particular, at 213 7th Street, had 1 room to rent. The city not only made them follow all of the above regulations, they told them they had to construct a wheelchair ramp to meet the ADA requirements. 1 room. Many houses on 7th Street are now Airbnbs, in houses that were once part of my bed and breakfast, houses that we've sold over the years. They operate without regulation, taxes, and without licensing. The city of Columbus has lost more than $1 million in tax revenue in the last 2 years by refusing to act on this issue. The Planning Committee called the city's plan to regulate and collect taxes heavy-handed. Is it heavy-handed because guests in Airbnbs don't deserve the same health and safety assurances as all other accommodations? Or is it because Columbus, Georgia is so wealthy that we have no need for the tax revenue? It's been a year since I sent a letter to the Department of Revenue in Columbus, Georgia, requesting the city enforce this law already on the books or allow my bed and breakfast the same courtesy of noncompliance. Since 1995, the Rothschild Pound House Bed and Breakfast has generated almost $1 million in hotel taxes alone. If it is indeed heavy-handed to force bed and breakfasts to follow these regulations, that's great with me. I will happily follow suit. But make no mistake, Airbnbs are B&Bs. It says it right in the name. They simply are reserved through a clever booking system, not so different from Expedia, a company that was sued by our city for failing to collect the taxes due to us. It's the same principle. Tiny cities across the world recognized this a long time ago and do just as Airbnb suggests on their very website. They require the collection of taxes, and their city benefits from them. Airbnbs in our city, operating a business just like mine, can sell rooms for $40 to $60 a night. They have no regulatory fees. That hurts my business. It's almost impossible to compete with that. Many times these Airbnbs have been compared with hotels. No one yet, not media, not council, have compared them to the existing bed and breakfast in Columbus. Will you allow air restaurants, air car lots, air bars and movie theaters? Why would you allow an Airbnb to operate outside the law? You can allow some businesses to operate outside the law while requiring other businesses within the same industry to comply. Thank you.
Ms. Pound, please be assured that I support the part of your presentation that says that these short-term rentals should have a business license, should pay taxes, should do the hotel motel. My concern here is with all of the other regulations that are here, and I'm going to ask you, if you will, to let me go through my questions, okay?
I just want to say that essentially what I'm saying here is I have the same businesses that you're saying that we should deregulate or not regulate. So if it works for them.
No, I'm not saying we should not regulate them.
I'm just saying
I'm not saying that at all.
Okay, but I'm just saying that this is my business.
I understand that.
Just because it has air in front of it, somebody's allowing it not.
No, that's not it.
Misunderstanding her.
The questions that I have are to get to the underlying piece of this, and I think if you'll give me the opportunity to go through this, these facilities that we are talking about today, under the UDO, proposed UDO, are short-term rentals. Airbnb is the name of a company that you can reserve these short-term rentals through. So let's be real clear that we are not talking about necessarily Airbnb. We are talking about short-term rentals. And I guess if I'm looking at section 4.9.3, and I want to know what is the purpose of a short-term rental agreement that's not met by a business license. You're asking for two different things. You're asking for a short-term rental agreement, and then you're asking for a business license. What is the purpose of the short-term rental agreement that differs from the business license?
We have a short-term rental permit application. Is that
Right.
what you're referring to?
Yes.
That's part of the application process to get the business license. So it's a form that we're asking them to fill out so we know whether they're renting a room, the entire house, where they're located, who's the agent of record that when there's issues we can contact. So it's an application that we're asking them to complete as part of the business license process.
And if I read 4.9.4, there is a $40 charge for this short-term rental agreement?
Yes, that's, yes, for the application.
And in addition to that is the business license?
Yes, that's correct.
And how much is the business license?
25.
The administrative fee for the business license will be $75, and then the short-term rental property owners will be subject to the occupation taxes also. But initially, to process the business license, the administrative fee to process the license will be $75 up.
So we're talking $75 plus the $40
That is correct. I'm sorry.
to be in business.
Yes. Which the $75 is the administrative fee for all business license, not just
Okay.
this specific one.
And then an additional 40, so what is that, 115 bucks?
Yes.
To get started, okay.
And Councilor Thomas, I would like to add also, all businesses that physically have a location here, they also have to pay $40 for a certificate of occupancy too.
So is this short-term rental permit comparable to a certificate of occupancy?
Yes, ma'am.
And does the short-term rental property then not have to have a certificate of occupancy?
No, that's correct. That's correct. This would be
In lieu of?
the CO.
Okay, okay. One of the requirements in this is for a criminal background check to be done for various people who are going to be working at these short-term, working with these short-term rentals. What other employment categories in Columbus require a background check of their employees?
Go ahead. The other type of business establishments that require, in which the City of Columbus require a background check to be conducted are alcohol establishments, pawn shop establishments, dealers in secondhand precious metals and jewelry, dealers in secondhand goods like electronic goods, taxi cab establishments, and anyone who does any type of adult or adult-oriented type of entertainment.
I'm sorry, what was the last one?
Adult type of entertainment,
Adult
socially oriented
entertainment.
types of businesses.
And let me just say, if I may, I don't want to interrupt you, but public safety is a concern in small facilities like this, and it's documented, as you heard me read in the GMA. I've been to conferences and attended sessions, and it is documented all over this country. And so, you know, we can be proactive in Columbus, or we can wait until it happens. And so that's a concern, and that's why that's required.
And this background check is conducted by the Columbus Police Department or Sheriff's Office?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, as an office. If the owner is not a natural person, which is a term used in this UDO, is a business, who gets the background check? Who do you check their background?
If the owner is not a non-person, if it's an entity, then we would check the shareholders if a corporation is involved. We would check the partners if a partnership is involved. So the principal stakeholders or the members of that entity, shareholders, we would conduct a background check on them.
So if it's owned by a corporation, you're going to check, you're going to do a background check on all of the principal owners?
The shareholders, yes, yes, ma'am.
Shareholders?
Yes, ma'am.
And tell me, what has to appear in the background check in order for it to be denied, if you will.
Well, when we do the criminal history background check, and if something comes up as dealing with moral turpitude, we would check with our city attorney's office to see if that would be a disqualifying factor. If the person has any convictions in which they were dealing in sexually oriented types of activities like prostitution or gambling charges, we would, that could be a disqualifying factor also. Drugs-related incidents can be a disqualifying factor also.
Okay. In the section on parking, is there a required number of parking places?
Councilor Thomas, if they are basically in a single-family residential structure, they're going to have to maintain that structure as is. They cannot add on to it. They cannot provide any additional signage. Whatever parking they have, it has to be accommodated on that site. There could be in cases I could see where there might be somebody parking on the street, but for the most part, they cannot add or subtract any of the parking they actually have with the house itself today.
Well, section 494A5 says that one of the things you're going to check is the number and location of parking spaces allotted to the premises.
And we will check that again.
My question is about the allotment of spaces. I know that when we approve a building, a new building in a strip mall, they have to have so many parking places designated. What is number 5? How is that number decided for these short-term rentals?
That's done for the rentals themselves. That, again, is looking at the site overall. Again, based on the actual parking they have today for that particular structure involved with it.
So we're going to have somebody go out to these short-term rentals and say, you have 3 parking places, and you have 4 parking places, and you have 2 parking places.
They're going to look at it from inspection code side. They're going to look at it and make sure they can accommodate parking on that site, not be anything beyond that. I don't know of a situation where that may happen, where they're going to go beyond the existing parking today, because again, they are to maintain that structure as an existing residential house, much like you see in any other neighborhood. They cannot add or subtract again anything to the house itself.
Okay, I'm going to read 494A6, and I would like somebody to explain that for me. The owner's agreement, this is one of the things that is required. The owner's agreement to use his or her best efforts to assure that use of the premises by short-term rental occupants will not disrupt the neighborhood and will not interfere with the rights of neighboring property owners to the quiet enjoyment of their properties. This is one of the requirements in order for you to get a short-term rental permit. Do we require that of anybody else?
Yes. Let John come tell you what they require that on.
Ideally, that would be anything that would violate any nuisance ordinance, so any noise ordinance, or say if we have cars that are parked on the street that are legally on the right-of-way, anything like that. You should have a copy of the permit form, and under that, one of the sections is that, make sure I get the right section right, that they will meet all and continue to comply with anything in the UDO, which is anything that would qualify as a nuisance. So if any noise complaints, we will investigate the noise complaints. If we get anything on junk cars or anybody, too many cars. Ideally, it's going to be more or less the noise ordinance, because ideally you're bringing that many people, you may be renting it out or whatever situation you may have. But like I said, the intent is to not affect the neighborhood. So therefore, anything that would fall under a nuisance that we already have as existing ordinance, that's where we're referring that to.
494A7 says, any other information that this chapter requires the owner to provide to the city as part of an application for a short-term rental permit. The city manager or his or her designee shall have the authority to obtain additional information from the applicant as necessary to achieve the objectives of this chapter. That last sentence, I need some further. What does that mean?
Ideally, if we, like I said, we're starting this out and we're not exactly sure. We're trying to make sure we cover all of our bases. So ideally, one of our concerns is if somebody is subleasing their apartment or their area, and we want to make sure that the owner of that sublease, so say somebody in an apartment complex is now wanting to operate an Airbnb and rent their unit out. So ideally, we would add the additional information, as we'd say, hey, make sure that we have information from your leasee that you're allowed to do this. Similar like we do for a certificate of occupancy. If somebody's moving into a strip mall and they want to open up a barbecue joint, we make sure that the owner that owns that shopping center understands that that person is coming to us to start a barbecue business. So that's kind of where that additional information, because we're not sure every situation, but ideally that's one of the ones we're looking at. So we may ask for a written agreement or some type of additional leasing notification from that owner of the property, letting them know that they're going to be using it for a short-term vacation rental.
And so you don't think this sentence is just a blanket authorization for the city to require additional information from the applicant?
No, ma'am. This is coming through my office, and like I said, we're going to need just what we need right now. And like I said, ideally, the attestment statement kind of covers everything that we're looking for. Now, if there is something additional that we may not be thinking of right now, we just wanted to have that in case if we did have to ask for it, then we'd have that ability to ask for it. We just didn't want anything to fall through the cracks.
Okay. Section B of that same 494 talks about the information that the owner will provide, and it goes into things such as you've got to post that, you've got to know that, let me back up. The owner shall provide a written agreement which shall consist of the form of document to be executed between the owner and the occupants, and which shall contain the following provisions. And those provisions include that the occupant agrees to abide by the rules and regulations of the City of Columbus, the noise ordinance, and that they're not going to run a house of prostitution and all that sort of stuff. Suppose the management of this unit is done by an online management company. Does this section require that company to customize its rental agreement to meet the standards that says it's going to abide by the City of Columbus, Georgia's rules and regs?
No, the intent is, like I said, this is as if the owner is there and say that owner information is an online company. Our understanding is if there's a noise incident and CPD or Inspections and Codes has to come by there, we want that person that is using that facility to understand that they can be cited for the violations of the code.
And you don't think they already know that?
You'd be surprised. They would say that it's the owner's responsibility and I'm just living in this house and I don't know anything about it, but we wanted to spell that out. So therefore, because the owner, like I said, if we're dealing with property maintenance issues, that will fall on the owner. But typically if they, put a bunch of trash out there from the weekend or whatever and just leave it on the side of the road, that if that person is still occupying that premises, that they will also receive a citation because they're the one that is present on the premises.
Well, this says that the occupant, there's going to have to be an agreement between the owner and the occupant, so that to make sure the occupant knows that they are subject to noise violations. And you don't think they already know that?
Well, I don't think look, we don't want to make assumptions because if we...
I think you're making a lot of assumptions.
Well...
Go ahead.
Mayor, let me just say that we are not making assumptions. We didn't go into this lightly. Staff have done research. It's been researched by Georgia Municipal Association. It's being taken up by the state legislature. As staff, I just want to say that we support legal use of properties as short-term rentals by licensed persons who pay state and local taxes. All we are trying to do is be proactive. It is what we should have done with personal care homes, be proactive. And so rhetorical questions would be, do we want to wait until it becomes a problem or a crisis, or wait until a crime occurs in one of the neighborhoods before we react, or do we want to get out front? And so I see that we are being proactive, as is GMA, they're being proactive. Our state legislature is being proactive because they see what has occurred in states all across this nation. And so, I simply recommend that we are recommending that we be proactive, and that's what we're trying to do. And so the bottom line is this is going to be a legislative decision. And so we are doing what you would expect us to do, be proactive, and bring before you all of the information and all of the facts so that you can make an informed decision. And what you have before you is what's being presented by our professional staff of what we should be doing here in Columbus, and that is being proactive and getting out front and collecting local taxes and state taxes and keeping people safe in the process. That's all we're doing. And so when we're done with this, I feel like I've done my due diligence, my job. Staff have done their job, and if you choose not to approve this ordinance and let things stay as is, my conscience is clear. We've done our work. And so that's all we're trying to do here today.
All right, Counselor Thomas, did you have further questions? We do have other counselors.
Yes, I do.
Okay, well then continue, please.
In section 495, the short-term rental agent, this says that one of the duties of the short-term rental agency is to be reasonably available to handle any problems arising from the short-term rental unit and to appear on the premises within a 2-hour notification. Who notifies that rental agent of this, that they need to be there within 2 hours?
We're working on the database between us and CPD, because ideally, if it's a noise incident or something that the police have to be called, we want somebody within Columbus. That's why on the application, you have an applicant, the owner, and then a 24-hour contact person. And that person is the person that should be on call. Therefore, if we have an incident or something where the police is called or the fire department's called, we have somebody that's available. We can, it's 2 hours. I don't know if I've heard of the suggestions if it's within a radius, maybe, so many, miles, so it's not, like you said, not somebody online somewhere that's not going to be available. Our intent is to try to make sure if there is an incident at that house, we don't know who to contact, because ideally through short-term vacation rentals, that's through that personal owner and that person who's renting the property. So we typically don't have that information to know who that 24-hour contact person is.
Are there other businesses that have such a requirement?
Typically, no, because if they have an alarm system or burglar alarm system, that goes straight to CPD, and then you know who the owner of that property is. So typically, I don't know of anyone that we would ask other than this situation.
If I'm the short-term rental agent for one of these short-term rental properties, does this mean that I can't go down to Lake Eufaula and go out on the lake where there's sketchy coverage because I may not be able to be back here within a 2-hour timeline?
Well, that's what I said. One of the suggestions we've heard from some people in the community is to make that maybe a radius, not necessarily a time frame, so that as long as you're within that 30 miles or something like that. So that's something we're not, it's in here because that's what we saw in another ordinance, but that doesn't mean that that's, set in stone. But ideally, we want that group to be responsive. And that's kind of our biggest concern is if something happens at that property, we want to make sure that the owner of the property or the 24-hour person that's responsible for that property is there, so we have some type of resolution to whatever's going on. Whether it's a burglary, whether it's a fire, whether it's something, we just want a person to know what's going on.
And who's going to enforce the 2 hours? Who's going to be there waiting to see if I get there within 2 hours?
We'd have to base it off the time that the call is put into CPD. If it's during the daytime, we would check it.
I don't know the answer to that, but we could have our police officers sit there for 3 hours. But obviously, there's going to be documentation and communication because typically when that happens, a police officer is sitting there and they're waiting on someone to respond.
Well, Mr. City Manager, the document goes on to say that if I don't show up twice, there's a $500 fine. And what my question is are we going to require that police officer or somebody to sit there for 2 hours waiting to see if I show up?
Well,
I think our police officers probably have better things to do.
Well, and I certainly do too. And I don't know what they do now. I know that when my burglar alarm is going off at my commercial property, when I get there, they're sitting there. And they walk through and they do what they do. And so, you could do an amendment if you'd like to say that 30 minutes. I don't want to throw everything out with a 2-hour or some other something in the proposed ordinance, but if you don't like 2 hours, then tell us what you like, and we can make amendments to it. That's how we typically deal with ordinances around the table. I mean, you guys amend, and we're not saying it's perfect. And so we welcome amendments and adjustments, but we believe we need to move forward.
Well, Mr. City Manager, I'm attempting to understand this 5-page document.
Sure.
So that I can make a decision on whether or not I want to make an amendment.
Sure.
And that's my purpose here today. And that's why I continue to ask these questions. I have a couple of more
Sure.
that I'd like to ask.
Sure.
And this may be something that Mr. Bowden, I'd like to know what the procedure is going to be employed by the CVB to fulfill the requirements of this section that says they are going to locate and name and make available to the city all of these short-term rental properties and tell those short-term rental properties that they've got to obey this ordinance. So what is the procedure that you're going to use to do that?
We're working with a consultant, SDR Helper. It's a company that specializes in working with communities to identify short-term rentals. They will do an assessment. They have an extensive database nationwide, but they will focus on Muskogee County. And then we can buy certain modules to address the issues that you're talking about as far as identifying the addresses and the locations of short-term rental units within the city, and then help us report to the city staff these units that need to either be in compliance or that they need to be checked on periodically.
How often will you report?
Depends on what the city staff requires us to do. The primary reason is that currently what we are doing is once a month, we will do a canvass of the city and do it by hand, if you will, but it's not very efficient. That's why we found this consultant that has the database that takes the legwork out of this and makes us more efficient in identifying those units.
And what about units that are not advertised online? How will you identify them?
I don't know the answer to that. We can find that out. I don't know what the benefit would be of a short-term rental if it's not being advertised. I mean, how would the visitor find a unit that's not being advertised in some form or fashion?
Perhaps when they get a notice from Fort Benning about graduation, there's something in there that says there's a short-term rentals.
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
There are various ways you can advertise other than online.
Right. Well, we can work with the company that we've identified, and we can ask them to address that question.
And what will the charge be for CCVB to conduct this?
There's no charge to the city.
You're not going to charge us at all to make this inventory?
No.
Okay. Let me see. One of the provisions here says that if there is a, let me see, if there's a problem with, and we find a violation, the city manager can render a determination on whether or not, and your business license or your permit is pulled. The city manager can, you can appeal to the city manager, and the city manager's decision shall be final. And I don't know if, I know that there's some of those that are currently on the book for other kinds of things, but are those subject to being, can those be appealed to a court of competent jurisdiction if I disagree with that? Do you?
Well, that's a city attorney question.
Yeah, there are a lot of ordinances where we do have a general appeal to Superior Court from a decision of a building officer or a city manager, so that can certainly be added if we want to do that.
And I don't know, this just says the city manager shall render a determination which shall constitute a final ruling on the application. I was just wondering if it would be subject to, if I don't agree with that, can I?
Certainly, and I yield to that because I have no pride in being the final authority on that. If you want to come before the council, that's fine with me. They put my name there, or my position, I didn't. So it does not matter at all.
Just one more quick comment that it's kind of technical, but Georgia law provides that that sort of a decision can be appealed to Superior Court by what they call a writ of certiorari anyway, but we can always add a sentence in here if you want to.
Right, they're going to allow the appeal whether you put it in there.
Right, put an appeal.
You just have a right to the access to the court.
Right.
I just wanted to.
So you're taking my power away.
Right.
Just saying, the Constitution trumps you.
So that does exist.
Well, I want to be real clear to my purpose here today. I believe that these short-term rental facilities must have a business license. There must be some way for them to pay the hotel motel tax, as well as any other taxes that may be accrued to other businesses of this sort. I'm a little concerned about some of the provisions of this document that seem to assume that there's going to be wrongdoing. I don't know of short-term rental in the city or B&B or, other facilities like this where we've had a problem with prostitution, which is in here. You can't have a house of ill repute. And I agree with that, can't do that. But I'm not sure that, I guess one of my concerns is that I agree with the people who were at the Planning Advisory Commission meeting. And I've watched that meeting 3 times now to see what they have said. And their main objective in their conversation, I believe, was that this proposal is too much government. That we do need to make sure that those short-term rentals, have a fire extinguisher, if you will, or whatever. But there are things in here that go much beyond what we do for other entities. And I just believe that we are making too many regulations. I understand that these short-term rentals are now in competition with our hotels. I understand that. But I don't believe it is the city of Columbus' responsibility to put such onerous regulations in place because these entities are in competition with our hotels. I think that our experience in Columbus with short-term rentals is different than the experiences in New Orleans. We have a different clientele. In Savannah, we have a different clientele. From what I have been able to ascertain from talking with some of the people who not only own and run the short-term rentals, but people who rent them, probably the majority of the people who do that are here for graduation from Fort Benning, at Fort Benning. And that clientele is certainly one that we want to encourage to use our short-term rentals, to use our hotels, to use our current bed and breakfast. And I'm just really concerned that we are putting too much on in this 5-page ordinance on short-term rentals. And I don't know.
Councilor Thomas.
Hold on. Ma'am, if you would, just a moment, we're going to finish up here, but thank you very much. Yes, I'm sorry. Did you have anything?
Thank you. Councilor Thomas, I want to add to what you had mentioned before about some of the provisions are too strict, so to speak, compared to some of our other businesses. Firsthand knowledge, I had some of the ordinance that we put in there as far as the advertising of certain types of what you want to do. I had a customer to come in to want to apply for a business license in which she wanted to advertise her rooms, her house, and she was going to break up each of the rooms and how she was going to market it to like Airbnb and the other host types of marketeers. They were going to be sexually oriented types of themed rooms. Sadomasochist type, I'm sorry to be blunt, but that's what she said to me. And so we were concerned about that. And in order for you to, and how she was going to do it, you had to pay extra money for each of those keys. And each of those rooms would have a different type of theme. Whatever your sexual desire was going to be, that's what they would cater to. And I brought this to the attention of the committee because my concern was, was pertaining to what type of establishment that she was going to try to offer. And I didn't want the city to be in a predicament, whereas this is what we're trying to market to our beautiful city, but not to put her out as far as what she's trying to do, because however you want to do, that's do unless you break the law. And that's why I brought it to the committee as far as we do have someone who wants to engage in this type of activity and advertise her rooms as such.
And I would say to you that we currently have ordinances on the books that would prevent that. We don't need additional here. And I think you were absolutely right if you said to her, no, 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 we're not going to do that in Columbus. I think you're absolutely right. But not because of this UDO, but because of what's already on the books. And we have that piece already. Mayor, I think that's it for...
Some other counselors you can plug back in if you have some other thoughts. We've got Counselor Woodson.
Whew. How do we even start? Okay. I'm not sure if the 2 hours is sufficient or not, but my understanding of the 2 hours is, in a response from the owner, is because we don't want, and we don't want absentee landlords. Because really, short-term, you're still a landlord. And we do not, I wouldn't want somebody that lives in New York to buy a house here and have it as an A and B or has it as a bread and breakfast. Something happens and they're nowhere to be found. And that's the part of this. I don't know if the 2 hours is just too strenuous. Maybe someone had made a suggestion of radius. You know, I don't know which one would be the most appropriate. But we do need something in place because there are people in this city that are taking their homes and renting them out with, just like Ms. Palm said earlier, no restrictions, nobody's checking on them, they don't know anything. So that's a safety issue, not only for that person, but our community. That's a revenue source that can benefit the things that the community is requesting of us. So I'm in favor of putting something together right now, and like the city manager said, and as long as I've been here, you can always amend an ordinance, always. But we need something in place to get some control. It is really out of control, and it's getting more and more. And if you want to know who's renting, go look on the websites. They'll give you the addresses of the people locally doing it that we're not aware of that they're doing it. So for me, I understand the hotels. I understand what Ms. Pound said, and I understand. But if we're having people conducting business, it's a business. You're bringing income to your home by renting your home. Everyone should be on the same sheet of music. Everyone should be. It should be fair across the board. And I think that's all this ordinance is doing. And I would tell my colleagues all around is we need to put something in place. This seems to be something that various groups have worked together. We always say that we trust our staff. They're professionals. So let's put this in place. We can always come back and adjust it. But I tell you what, I'm in very full agreement with the owners being in the local area where we can reach out to them, where they can go to the property immediately, where we can hold them accountable for something. Because, you know, people like to play with words, I've learned, and people will come back and say, well, that wasn't in the ordinance. So to me right now, might seem strict. I think we need to test the waters. And if it needs to be adjusted, we can come back and adjust it in the format that we need. The key, more important thing of anything, we need to think of safety, not only for the person that's coming into our community and using it, and for the people that owned it. There's too much going on in our country today for us to turn our eyes around and pretend everything is rosy and okay. I also, you know, I was listening about the cost of it. The application is $40, $75 for the license. The occupational tax is $40. That's $155 for a business, because it becomes a business if you're renting it out. My question, and I don't see anything wrong with that, but my question is the occupational tax, is that per building or is that per room that fee would have to be paid for?
It's going to be on the gross receipts of the bill, of the business. Because we will license each location, so it will be the gross receipts that each of those locations bring in.
Can you give me an example, please?
Okay. Let's say, for instance, we have someone who owns 10 homes. And let's say one of those homes, he rent the rooms out individually. So I'm looking at the parcel address of 5555 Pleasantville Drive. I'm looking at, I don't care if you rent that sofa, I don't care if you rent that room, just that room or one bedroom. If the total revenue, the rental receipts that is received from that parcel address is $1 million, then that needs to be reported on your occupation tax return, $1 million.
Help me understand something, because now I'm not sure, and I need clarification. I thought the occupational tax was designed for public safety to know the entities of the facility, to be able to come in case of an emergency. So I'm a little confused.
Occupation taxes is the gross receipts tax on the business. It's a revenue-producing component of our tax structure. So the money is put back into the general fund to take care of what needs to be taken care of. Now, we do assess a excise tax, which is a hotel, motel, lodging excise tax, and that goes into a special fund to take care of the tourist accommodations part of it. But the gross receipts tax, that's the $3.21 per thousand, that's currently the tax rate for any type of transit lodging. That is part of the whole general fund of the city.
Okay. Well, later I need somebody to talk to me, because what happens with a small business in a home? And they're, you know, are they also, and they have to get an occupational thing. Does that basically work the same way?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
If it's, let's say, for instance, Councilor Baker, he, he's a CPA.
Yeah.
And he wants to have a home-based business in which he wants to practice his accounting practice. We would tax him the same way. I mean, for accounting practitioners, of course, they can pay based on the flat fee of $400 per licensed practitioner. But for the accounting area, the gross receipts tax on them would be $3.91 per thousand. So he has that choice of going either or, but we tax him the same way also.
But I think the point you do need to make, that she's made, is that in addition to the basic $75 and $40 and the hotel tax, there's an annual occupation tax, which is based on the gross receipts of the enterprise. And we have different classes that have different tax rates, and you apply that tax rate to your gross receipts. That's part of the licensing process when you renew. There's a place for it on the return there. And you state your gross revenue for the year. And there's a factor that calculates your annual gross receipts tax. And you pay that. So there is an additional tax, but it's no different than anybody else. I had a lady that was writing a cookbook in her house. She had to get a license and pay occupation tax, and she understood. She made sure that's the first thing I did every year was file her occupation tax and pay her license fees. So it's no different than any other business enterprise. You know, once you cross that line and you market yourself, of course now it's worldwide. You go into these sites and market your business. You're advertising a for-profit accommodation business. There's no way around that. Yes, and I understand, Councilor Thomas, some of your comments about overreach, but there are some unique applications to those about having somebody in your home. You know, does a soccer mom with a child have a right to know that that person they're renting from in the next room has a history of domestic abuse or identity theft? Is that an overreach, or is that a practical regulation? That's subject to debate. But those are the issues that we're faced with, and I think to get our arms around this and understand what we're trying to do is part of the process. And clearly I understand your reaches about, your comments about is it government overreach, but I think you try to just temper that with what are practical, reasonable solutions. But it is a business operation. And there are issues of compliance that come into play just with any other business. I didn't mean to get off track.
No,
no problem. But there are some additional taxes in addition to the registration, the application, the $40 and the $75 fee that will come into play. But they do with everybody else as well.
Did you have anything further, Councilor Woodson?
Oh, no, I'm good.
Good. And did want to say, I haven't been involved in this commission. I know that there's a lot of folks that have been texting probably everybody here, but ideas about amendments. So I don't know if it's good to continue first read. It sounds like there's some really good, proactive suggestions of making it even better. And I would say I've also been contacted by some law enforcement folks, and apparently, and attorneys, in this new era we're in of the internet, we sort of forget as we apply what we've always known to what we think might be. And apparently, that woman you spoke of, she didn't walk into your office that boldly because she was announcing to you she wanted to participate in the illegal act of prostitution. A lot of these entities set themselves up where you're not paying, the customer's not paying for the sex.
Correct.
They're paying for the environment. That's not illegal. And it's similar to when a lot of motels went to paying by the hour, remember, and the brouhaha over that. And it was hard to regulate. It was hard to regulate how they were going to take in their revenue. But nevertheless, everybody knew that they were creating an environment in which certain illicit activity was particularly welcomed. And so it's tough. It's tough to not want to regulate the ingenuity of this next new market, and at the same time making sure it's a free market for those who are already in it. That's what regulation does. People forget that we protect access to the free market for those who are already in it, those who want to enter it. But we're just going to have to balance this ingenuity with some people being too cute by half.
Well, and Madam Mayor, let me just say, we want to get it right.
Yeah.
And so I don't have any problem with continuing first read. And if we could get Councilor Thomas's input and input from around the table that we can work on by the next meeting, we're happy to do that. We just know that this situation, I had some stats that I gave Deputy City Manager Pam Hodge after I went to the conference. I shared all my notes with her, and I think I shared it with you.
Mm-hmm.
Hundreds of these things open every single day across the country, hundreds. And if you go to the conferences and you hear from city, county managers from across the country at the International City County Managers Association, you will hear about the crisis that this has become across the country. There's crime and spies on people in rooms and all kind of everything that, you hear it and you're like, do we want to do that in our city? And we're not accusing any of our people. We know that they're doing good business and honest business, but we just want to prevent those from getting in like some of those others that have been talked about across the country. So we'd love to continue it on first read, and I know that the 2-hour thing has come up a couple of times. I don't know. My family owns a couple of businesses, and when we're out of town, if it's on the West Coast somewhere, family members have the code, the keys, and if we get the call, we simply call the family member, they go, and they're able to greet public safety, and so the 2-hour thing is, I think they could have a representative. It doesn't have to necessarily be the owner, but they have to have enough information that they can answer public safety questions when they get there. So if you know you're going to be out of the country, you've got to designate someone that if there's an emergency with your property, would you please respond?
Yeah.
And so, there's that flexibility in all of that. So
Yeah. Well, a basic tenet of our country, our capitalist society, and our legal system is that with the benefit of making money comes the responsibility of doing it correctly.
Yes.
And I mean, that's just basic. That's what the law is for. So we just have to figure out what that balance is. All right. So we've got the suggestion of continuing first read, and we've got Councilor Thomas.
Mr. City Manager, be careful what you ask for. I'll be more than glad to sit down with anyone, and I agree with what you're saying about a prudent business person, no matter what business they're in, has someone to do what you're saying. My concern is that this requires that that person be on site within 2 hours. that may or may not be appropriate. But if I have one of these short-term rentals, and I want to go to Lake Eufaula and go fishing and go out on the lake where there's not any cell phone service, then it's up to me to make sure that there's somebody that can answer that telephone and do what needs to be done. But that's a business decision, and to require that I be there within 2 hours, I think, is what I'm talking about. So let's have some conversation about that sort of thing. And I agree with what has been said here. I think everybody should be subject to the same tax requirements, the same business license, the same occupancy tax, the same, whatever else is there. And I know that we currently have some of these short-term rentals that are not operating within that. I'm all for let's get them all as much as we can into this and get them paying what we need to, what they should be paying as part of this new business wave, if you will. I just hope that we can do that without being too overstepping, if you will. Thank you.
All right, and that concludes, oh wait, we've got, hold on a second, we've got Counselor Baker.
I just have one other question for this, probably you, John, because I'm reading these from other cities, how they do it. Property owners can actually set their own restrictions more stringent than ours, can they not? I mean, if it's your property, you can have restrictions much more stringent than what we're asking for. Is that not correct?
That's correct.
And I've also read, and I don't know if this is part of ours or not, so this is a question, that some of the other cities, when you list your property through one of these sites, you have to list, and I'm assuming this is a local requirement, because they check it through the various organizations we were talking about. You have to list your license number, you have to list the appropriate sales tax rates, and you have to list any particular restrictions about times or noise or whatever, or number of guests or vehicles on your property. It's all listed right there or linked right there from the advertisement. And I don't know if we're going that far or not, requiring that or not.
We're just making sure that just kind of, unfortunately, with redundancy, making sure that that person that is renting that, even if it may not be listed, that they understand that they can be responsible. That's kind of what Councilor Thomas was speaking to before. But typically, we'll ask, on the permit there, we'll ask for the property address, and then below on all those platforms, so then that helps the CVB's consultant know kind of where these properties are being listed, and then we also have a database to check against. So then we'll know if it's outside of that group or if it's officially listed as one of our groups, and then we can proceed with enforcement as needed.
Okay, Mr. Fay.
All right, I think we got some more people in the audience, Mayor, that want to be heard. If you want to let them come up.
Sure.
How are y'all doing? I'm Ernie Smallman. I've got 4 of these Airbnb units right now. I'm sorry. So I'm Ernie Smallman. I have 4 of the Airbnb units operate right now and working on some other ones. And I looked through, the regulation or the ordinance as presented, and I looked at Nashville and some other cities. And a lot of these cities, they break it into 2 classes. So you have an investor class, which is me, just a corporate apartment. And then you have a homeowner classification, which is where somebody is leasing a room in their home. So when you get into like the background checks, that makes more sense if I'm staying in your house, more so than if you're just staying in an apartment that if I was renting it annually, there'd be no background check requirement. But if I'm renting it less than 30 days, this additional requirement's in there. So it seems like it would make more sense if we broke it into 2 classifications for permitting purposes. So you have the owner-occupied and the investor classification. Like Nashville's ordinance, it doesn't have the 2-hour requirement to be on site, but it does have a requirement that the owner or the authorized agent provide proof of residency they live within 25 miles of the unit. And that helps take care of what we're talking about. I mean, it's response time. I mean, we had a party this weekend at the next door neighbor's house. Had nothing to do with us, but we had to go over there to try to get them to calm down to keep our guests happy. So, you know, it kind of works both ways. We don't need to have all the restrictions put on the operator of the unit. You know, the rules and regulations as far as what is allowed and what's not allowed, I don't think we need to have a document that's signed by each guest. We don't even see the guests. I mean, we don't meet them. Everything's done online. They have codes to get in. So that all just needs to be notification through the licensing, through the permitting displayed in the house, displayed on the house rules online, and then displayed in the house itself in the rules section. The, you know, the short-term rentals, we're not making any prepared food, so there's really no need to have the health department involved. I mean, you're providing a kitchen just like an apartment. If you're going to do prepared food, then you need to get a bed and breakfast license so that you can provide that guest with food, if that's what you choose today. You know, another thing Nashville requires is that you notify all of your neighbors of your contact information and what you're doing. And that would allow your neighbors to call you instead of calling the police if there's an incident, or just to call you if there's just a nuisance, that something that's recurring that they'd like you to know about. That way they have your contact information. You know, we probably need to have, and I think the inspections and coach touched on it a little bit, but you know, a statement that this doesn't violate your homeowners association. It doesn't violate a condo association. I don't think you should be able to be in a sublease situation where I go lease an apartment and then turn around and sublease it again. I mean, it seems to me it should be restricted. You should actually have to own the property to be able to get into the short-term rentals. I think we should consider having a cap on the number of occupants. Nashville's code has, you can have 2 occupants per bedroom plus 4 additional with a maximum of 12 guests. And to me, that's something that makes sense. I mean, we don't need to have people renting a 4-bedroom house and coming in with, you know, 16, 18, 20 people, and that's disruptive to the neighbors. Another thing that, you know, y'all have touched on, I guess, shorter than short-term rentals. The short-term rental should have a 24-hour rental requirement. I mean, you shouldn't be able to rent a room for less than 24 hours. And I think that can be hit in the licensing code as well. I know y'all have spent plenty of time on this. It's going to get continued, so I'm going to,
Sure.
I'll answer any questions y'all have, but
Well, I think
we'll
those
be
are the
doing it
very
again.
type of things we'd like to take into consideration as we continue this to first read. So thank you for that.
Thank you all.
All right. Yeah, we've got Counselor Baker.
Jones, or, we're not limiting this, because I know some cities do, by zoning district, right? Because in some cities, you can only have these in particular
We have-
zonings, but we're not going that far.
No, sir, we have not put restrictions on where they can go at this time.
Okay,
It's primarily dealing with residential structures, but we have not put a limit on that.
okay, thank you.
We need him for voting. Okay. Okay. All right, we've got Counselor Pugh.
Not a question, but if there are people listening and they do have some questions, if they can just send them to the city manager's office.
Right, that's great. Just send your questions to the city manager's office. We'll be taking these in, getting them to commission, and getting a new proposal. Okay, thank you. All right, with that, Mr. City Attorney, if you carry that over to the next meeting, please, for first read. Okay, we can take a motion. Counselor Thomas with a motion. We got a second from the Mayor Pro Tem. All those in favor,
Continue
please.
first reading.
To continue first read. All those in favor, please state aye. Are there any opposed? Okay, great. Mr. City Attorney, I think that concludes your agenda. Okay, let's do this. We have, as we said, this is 9/11, and there's events going on all over the community. Many of the elected officials have been invited to speak. We've got public safety folks here who should be being celebrated, but they're sitting here.
because of the length of our meetings, which is great. We've got important business to do. So what we're going to do is go to the city manager's agenda where we have votes that are going to be taken. As soon as that's over, we're going to lose our quorum, and then we'll go back to the regular agenda that does not require voting items. Mr. City Manager.
Madam Mayor, first on my agenda, I've got a lease agreement at 810 Veterans Parkway. It's the Del Mar.
Okay, this is a motion and a second for the Dr. Delmore Edwards Black History Museum. It's a lease for $1 per year of 10 years that we had discussion about last time, and there appears to be no discussion, so you may record your votes electronically. And it does pass.
I've got a street acceptance, Debatana Drive and a portion of Confetti Blush Drive.
Okay, we've got a motion and second for the street acceptance. Seeing that there's no discussion, all those, you may record your votes electronically. And it passes.
I've got a $10,000 donation for Columbus Police Department Informant Fund.
We've got a motion and second for the approval of the $10,000 donation to the police department. You may record your votes electronically. As I see, there's no discussion. And it does pass.
Madam Mayor, I've got a few purchases. The first is the ArcGIS software license and maintenance. It's $43,400. We're asking your approval.
Okay, we've got a motion second of item A, and we have Counselor Thomas.
I'm sorry, I'm on B. I want to do B. Ask a question on B.
I'm sorry, what's that?
B.
Oh,
not
B,
A, I'm
okay,
sorry.
all right. You may record your votes on item A then, please. Okay. Got a motion and second, oh wait, let's go to item B, a storage facility rental payment for the sheriff's office. Is there a motion for that approval? For B? Okay, that's for Counselor Baker and in a second by Counselor Woodson, and then Counselor Thomas had a question related to this.
Mr. City Manager, I was asked if there, this is a storage facility that is not owned by the city, and I was asked, are there not facilities that the city owns that we could do this storage without paying a fee? And my question was, reading some of the things that were there that were stored, I'm not sure that there is, but I said I would ask that question.
Well, and I appreciate that, and I was asked by Councilor John House earlier this morning in an email. He gets up early. But the answer to the question, as I shared with Councilor House, is that we don't have a facility available at this time that would be suitable for what the sheriff's office is, what they store. They are sensitive items. I've listed some of those. I don't really care to call them out publicly, but sensitive items, evidence, and so forth. And they are renting a facility that's conducive to what they are stored in that facility. We just don't have one at this time. If we, in the future, have a facility, we will certainly make that available to the sheriff.
And this is an ongoing?
That is correct. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, and so you may, that's the end of discussion. You all may record your votes electronically for item B. And item B does pass. And then we have from Counselor Huff a motion to approve purchases C through G. And did we have a second? Counselor Woodson. And so that's the jury management software subscription and hosting services, fire truck engine repair, annual maintenance renewal for Cisco switches, generator upgrade for the Muskogee County Jail, electronic equipment for main E911 center and backup E911 center. Is there any discussion on those items C through G? All right, seeing none, you may record your votes electronically. Okay, and that does pass. Thank you all for your patience.
And so, Madam Mayor, on my
We have
updates
public agenda
agenda,
first. I have to go back to public agenda.
well,
Okay.
if I'm
Sure, okay, go ahead.
Let me say that we've already dealt with court management, the personal care homes, scope of work update. I am going to delay it. I know that Councilor Davis has an interest in it, and he is not here today, but it was going to be about the scope of work only. That was what the discussion was going to be about. If there is no objection, we'll try and do it when he's here and can participate. And we're also going to delay the transportation update, and so that would leave only the amnesty update for demolition liens, and that will only take, when we get to it, a minute or two. We just want to tell you how many have taken advantage of the amnesty offer opportunity, and so that will be the only update that I will have today if there are no objections to the others being delayed, Madam Mayor.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that, and it's just been brought to my attention, there is one other item that we must have 6 votes for, and that is going to be on the clerk's agenda. We might need the deputy assistant city manager, but it is to, which item is it, Councilor Huff, to approve the assistant? Well, no, we're just going to do the clerk. We can't go through that whole thing because I got everybody wanting that. So was there one about this clerk here that we needed from Hamilton? Is there, Tamika, something that we must approve today for the fact that we have a guest clerk?
Well, we do have some board appointments, and we have 2 resolutions excusing counselors that need.
But we can do that next week.
Okay.
I mean, we have people who are speaking at things that they were supposed to be at 17 minutes ago. So I'm trying to rush through, but, okay. All right. Well, we'll just go through it then. I'm sorry. Let's back up, and we're going to go through the clerk's agenda. I think we're going to lose our quorum. All right, go ahead.
Okay, we have 2 resolutions excusing Councilor Glenn Davis from the August 28th meeting, and a resolution excusing Barnes from the September 11th.
Okay, we've got a motion and second of those 2 resolutions. All those in favor, please state aye. Okay.
Okay, on our board appointments, we have, well, we do have minutes of the various, the board appointments, okay.
Okay.
Okay,
We've
on
got the minutes of the Board of Tax Assessors, the Planning Advisory Commission, the Recreation Advisory Board, and the Tree Board. All those in favor, please state aye.
Okay, and on the Board of Health, we have Dr. Alapan.
Got a motion and second. All those in favor, please state aye.
Okay, on the Board of Honor, we have Hydrick and Wells.
Okay, we've got a motion for Mr. Hydrick, Mr. Wells on the Board of Honor. All those in favor, please state aye.
Okay, on the Columbus Aquatics Commission, we have Mr. Steed.
Got a motion and second. All those in favor, please state aye. Yes.
Councilor Davis asked that he be also excused
For today.
Okay.
That was not on the.
We'll accept that as a motion. Is there a second? All right, all those in favor, please state aye. All right, and what we're going to do now is suspend the rest of the clerk's agenda if there's no emergency items. And we'll go back, thank you all, we're going to go back to our public agenda where we've had folks who've been patiently waiting, and we thank you so very much for that. And we will now lose our quorum, so there'll be no further business. And we will adjourn at the end of the public agenda and the report on the city manager's agenda. All right, first we're going to call Executive Director Dave Pugh, who's representing the Southeastern Vet to Vet Peer Support, and would like to speak to us about program information. Thank you, sir, for your patience. We appreciate you all letting us juggle our agenda a little bit on this special day.
Madam Mayor, thank you.
And if you
Thank
just state your name and
Councilor,
address.
for inviting me. I'm here to just give you a brief overview of an organization that is in your city that will be a great asset to your city and to one of your most prized possessions, which is your veterans. Okay, we are And one of your counselors can attest to that because he proudly served on our board of directors for 3 years, Mr. House. And he can attest to the things that we do. We are a nonprofit organization, okay? What we do, we help veterans come in our theater that is suffering from either post-traumatic stress disorder or some type of abusive disorder. Okay, we know that now with their environment like it is, they're doing multiple tours. That means that they are really, especially when it comes to stress and post-traumatic stress and abuse, that they are having a hard time adjusting back into society when they get back. So what we do, we take prior veterans, train them how to attend to veterans that need help. We call it vet to vet. The reason why we chose to go that route was because we understand that veterans really understand each other. They have the empathy and the sympathy for each other that is needed to help them get through a lot of crises that they are having. And so therefore, we formed this organization called Vet to Vet, right? What we did, and we have facilitators that is trained to administer our agenda. They do the sites, they run the sites, they run the sessions, and they're trained to notice any problems or help the veteran with any problem that they are having, particularly pertaining to post-traumatic stress disorder. We have found out that these veterans really enjoy coming to vet due to the fact that they have somebody who will listen to them, that understand them. Not only that, they have someone who have been there before, that know what they're talking about, and they can empathize with them. On that, we can help them ascertain things that they don't know about and that help them in their recovery process, okay? And so we do this on a daily basis. In Columbus, we have 3 sites, where we have 3 sessions per week with 2 sites. One is at the Columbus-based Occupational Clinic on 13th Street and 13th Avenue, and one is at 1274 Floyd Avenue at Mount Calvary Church, okay? And we are organizing, we give 3 sessions a week. Now, the corporation is ran by a board of directors. Okay? The board of directors set all the policies for the corporation, and the executive director, who is myself, runs the day-to-day operation of the corporation. Okay, do the hiring and putting all the programs in place and everything like that. We are Southeastern Veteran Peer Support. We are incorporated in 7 southeastern states. Okay, and so we have, so far since we was incorporated in 2009, we have set up 8 different sites in 8 different locations. Okay, and we are looking to set up more sites based on, since we're a nonprofit, based on the finances we get, the help we get from the different city organizations and things like that. We are asking that, reason why we wanted to come here, and we thank Pop Barnes for allowing us this opportunity. We wanted to come to let the city know that we are here in the city, and when in the organization in the city, and when you have things that is going on that you need help from us pertaining to the veterans, and you will know so that you will be able to point them to our directions so we can give them help. Okay. We thank you for allowing us this opportunity to come and do so. You are welcome to stop in at any of our sites at any time, okay, and review our process. We welcome you. The only thing that you have to do is sign a confidentiality statement when you come in, because one of the things about Vet to Vet is based on confidentiality, most importantly. When you come into the session, you have to sign in as being a confidential person, that you would not take out what these veterans talk about in the session, because they get very personal in these sessions. They get down into some of the different things that is really, really affecting them, right? That they might not want to talk about with nobody else. So you are welcome to come in and visit our sites. I'm going to leave a pamphlet here for each one of you to look over, and I'm going to leave contact information for each one of you, and hopefully that someone will just call me or call one of the sites and say, I'm coming in and take a look at it for you. You guys can be able to really tell the people what we have to offer to our veterans in this community. Just to give you a good idea, and then I won't take up more of your time, about some of the things, one of the things that is very important to us, and that is attendance and how we do it. For instance, we keep a monthly attendance rate at our sites. In the month of January this year, we had 9 sessions with an attendance of 156 in those sessions, was the average about 17 per session, right? We didn't have no new attendees that month. But the rest of the month down through, we did have all the way up into July. This is a 7-month forecast output, right? So in the 7 months that we did in Columbus only, right, we have helped 1,287 veterans. Okay, we have an average of 16 per session. That is a lot. The usually average for a group like that is about 12, but we are averaging way over that. And we have brought in 35 more new veterans this year. Okay, what we do, our process is like this. You stay there and come to the session as long as you and your primary psychiatrist or your psychiatrist say you need help. And we will help you. Once they release you, if you continue wanting to come, then you can also come. So we are a perpetual organization. We don't say you have to be 6 weeks and then leave. Because a lot of time it takes up to, like for me, for instance, when I came out of Vietnam, it took me 30 years to get myself oriented back to do things in the community the correct way. So we focus on that, not on how many people we can have, but we focus on the wellness of the veterans. Okay? And so I thank you very much for allowing me this opportunity, and hopefully you guys will, like I say, come by and look at our program, or ask Mr. House. He worked with us long enough, he pretty much know our program now. Okay? Thank you very much. I appreciate your time. And I'm going to leave these here.
Thank you. Thank you. We have Counselor Counselor House.
Is there any question on me?
Well, hang on a second, Dave. I want to say something good about you. I want to echo what Mr. Pugh has said. Several years ago, I was on the board for this group. They've saved the Department of Veterans Affairs hundreds of thousands of dollars by providing volunteer peer support group facilitators all over the state of Alabama and in Columbus, Georgia. So they are out there. They've been out there for years helping veterans all over the place. Consistently do customer service surveys at the end of the year, and it's always over 95% satisfaction from the veterans that are helped. So they do a lot of good work. I've been to a lot of VA mental health summits with Mr. Pugh and others because of that back when I was on the board. So they are here, without a doubt, and they have serviced a lot of veterans and helped a lot of people because of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. House. Council, any other questions?
All right. No, that's all. Thank you so much, sir. Appreciate you and all you do for Columbus.
And tell Papa I said,
We will. We'll let him know. Thank you so much. We do need your name, if you would, and give us your address. That's sort of a requirement. That is a requirement.
Okay. My name is Indavis. They call me Dave because most people get my first name mixed up. My name is Indavis Pugh. It's spelled I-N-D-A-V-I-S, hyphen over the A.
Great. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. And an address, please, either of the organization or any address.
Our organization right now is have a P.O. Box. It's P.O. Box 830329, that is located in Tuskegee, Alabama, which is our headquarters right now.
Okay.
36083.
Great.
We are looking at sites in Columbus to set up our corporate office.
Great. Thank you so much. Appreciate you coming out
Madam.
today. All right, next we have Ms. Audrey Holston Palmore, who would like to speak about requesting meetings. Good morning. If you would give your name and address, please.
Good morning. Could you please tell me what time it is? Anyone?
It's 11:30.
11:30, thank you. And the time set?
Your time is running, ma'am.
I don't see it.
Okay. It's running up here. I don't know why, but if you want to
I
talk
need
about
to
that,
see
we
it.
can, but
I need to see it
it's not
because I
working at the
practice at
podium.
home,
Okay.
trying to make sure that I stayed within the 10 minutes.
Yeah, I
So
think,
could you please make sure that it's posted? Thank you.
they don't think so. Ma'am, your time is running.
Ma'am, that would be a disservice to me because I do need to know
You can
how
use your
much
time in any way you can, but we don't have the
I need
ability
know
today
what-
to show
the
your
amount of
time.
time. I've never been.
You have 4 minutes and 2 seconds. It's not working at the podium, so we can discuss that,
Oh,
or we can
we're-
discuss what you came to speak of.
So what time is it right now? So I
You
can
have 3
start
minutes and
speaking?
51 seconds now.
Could you repeat that?
You have 3 minutes and 45 seconds.
It's not a 10-minute agenda
Yeah,
set today?
It's broken up into 2 5-minute sections.
Okay, well, can I start right now since we've had this little unusual?
Okay, you go ahead and we'll see how far we get, and I'll put
I
another
just wanted to make sure I go
minute and a half
10
on if
minutes.
you.
City Manager, could you please tell me what time it is right now so I can write it down? I didn't bring my timepiece.
Ma'am, we're not going to allow you to continue to delay
I
the
just want to
meeting
know so I
speak.
can write down my
I've got
time.
it right here, and I will give you a 5-minute warning, and then you'll have another 5 minutes. And so I've told you a couple times, you started at 11:30, and then I told you you were at 3 minutes and 50 seconds, 3 minutes and 45
Okay, we're
seconds.
going to run it like that today.
Okay.
For Audrey. That's okay. Good morning. I am Audrey. Good morning, elected and selected officials, as well as the citizens of Columbus, Georgia. I am Mrs. Audrey Holston Palmore. On Friday, September 7th, 2018, I applied to be on today's public agenda for the reason of verbally communicating to Teresa Tomlinson, who serves as the mayor and the Public Safety Director of the City of Columbus, Georgia, as well as Isaiah Hughley, who serves as the City Manager of Columbus, Georgia. I want to verbally communicate to both of these individuals my concern. I am here to verbally communicate to Teresa Tomlinson the desire I have to meet with the composer of a police report filed by a Columbus law enforcement officer, whereas I, Audrey Holston Palmore, is the subject of the filed report. In the Columbus Police Reporting System, the written communication report is identified as case report number 170132110001. The verbal communication I have a desire to express to City Manager Isaiah Hughley in his absence is regarding an agreement made to provide a service of accommodation, yet city personnel failed to do what was contractual agreed for to perform by city officials whom he manages. Oh, but before I do that, there is a comment I desire to express about words of the August 14th, 2018 portion of the public agenda. as I attempted to present my concern of meeting with Teresa Tomlinson, representatives of the law enforcement agency representing the Sheriff Department of Muskogee County took position in an aggressive manner toward my position here at the podium. The 10-minute limit afforded me had barely gone by before the aggressive behavior of the two officers occurred. In the immediate future, starting now, I would appreciate the enforcement of a definite 10 minutes for each participant listed on the public agenda. This enforcement of the person listed only on the written portion of the public agenda would allude to fairness. I would like the specific time of the beginning of the 10 minutes to be clearly announced by the time setter. Oh, and in regards to the female citizen of Columbus, Georgia, who had an opportunity to speak about her concern of an empty lot on the Lawyer Lane, and my recall of the statement she expresses about Lawyer's Lane being of ghetto status. I want her to know that the dictionary or dictionaries I looked into to gain knowledge of the word ghetto depicts the word ghetto as being a word with three meanings. The name Lawyer's Lane did not appear in not one dictionary I looked in. I do know this. I do know that the musical artist group named War sings lyrics in a song they performed which states that the world in which we all live is a ghetto. I interpret these words to mean every street in Columbus, Georgia, and beyond Columbus, Georgia, is ghetto. Ghetto, therefore, is everywhere. I have taken out time to share some thoughts that I had about a project that perhaps Councilor Bruce Huff and the young lady or the middle-aged lady or the lady could share. I have a project in mind that instead of there being grass too high, which seems to have been her major concern, that we could get together and have a project where lawnmowers could be utilized in this particular area that she spoke of so that grass won't be too high, I think over 18 inches. And by the way, not one dictionary I looked in said anything about the height of grass in reference to the word ghetto. So I really don't understand why it was even referenced to Lawyer's Lane or anywhere else referenced to as ghetto in her presentation. Now at this time, I will expound on the reason I applied to appear on today's public agenda. I shall again, for the 9th time this year, attempt to appeal to Teresa Tomlinson, the Public Safety Director for the City of Columbus, Georgia, to regard my need for clarity about a filed police report about me. I will make a declaration for assistance. I made a declaration for assistance from a Columbus law enforcement officer, and I want it to be taken seriously. I regard your official status of the Public Safety Director to be an indicator of a willingness on your part to not only hear my verbal call for clarity, but to do your part to act on my verbal call to bring forth the bona fide composer of case number 17013211-001. I would like for the composer of this case report, whom I understood to be a bona fide Columbus Police law enforcement officer. I would like for us to be in the same room, a room space designated by you that is not a courtroom, so that the facts can reveal the clarity of truth of the report. I still am very puzzled by the status reading of the report as it is on today. Please break down the barriers of communication that are existing between us now. I have called you, as you told me to do, to set up an appointment to meet with you. It has been to no avail. It was during the June 2018 second Tuesday council meeting you told me to call you. There's a few more factors involved in that.
Now, that does conclude your time, Ms. Pallamore. I'm going to put another minute on.
A minute?
I'm just going to put 1 minute. Yes, ma'am. You've had 10 minutes. I'm going to put
I
1
am
minute on.
still very concerned about you
There we
listening to
go.
the words of integrity the composer will reveal to you for my clarity. I am eager to move forward. I want you to take this concern of mine as a way to show your concern, to take an opportunity to show concern for a Columbus, Georgia citizen and positive mental health. I am in need of a meeting with the city manager of Columbus, Georgia, Isaiah Hughley, because there was a decline in management which caused health concerns to myself, other citizens of Columbus, and guests from areas elsewhere invited to Columbus, Georgia by citizens of Columbus, Georgia for a wholesome family event. The event suffered undue stress because of a dereliction of duty by the quality people working in the Department of Parks and Recreation Division of Columbus, Georgia, city government.
Okay, Mrs.
The
Pallamore,
promotion
that
of
does
quality
conclude it.
health,
Thank you very much.
and a positive environment.
We appreciate you. Sign up for next time if you would, okay? Thank you. No, ma'am. Yes, I know the buzzer's broken, as I explained. Yeah, yeah. Okay, thank you. All right. All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. We need to get to other citizens, okay? Thank you so much. All right, thank you. Yes, thank you. Okay. Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay. Yeah, thank you. All right, thank you. All right, and thank you. We're going to call forward Ms. Teresa Alameen, and she's representing the Southern Anti-Racism Network. She'd like to speak to us about crime prevention grants in Muskogee County School District. Bruce, I'm going to ask if you would turn on the microphone at the podium, please. Thank you, Ms. Alameen. If you would just state your name and address, please.
Yes, Teresa Alameen, 3911 Steam Mill Road. And Madam Mayor, if you would hold your hand up at the 5-minute warning.
Yeah, I will tell you just as I did before.
Oh.
Okay, your time
Okay, because
started.
I see this isn't working. Well, first of all, I'd like to say that the On the Table is the best civic engagement activity I've ever seen. Last year, the Southern Anti-Racism Network participated in Beyond the Table. We had a small table, and it was kind of strategically focused. 4 small grassroots organizations sent a couple of representatives to the table. 2 of us are members of Nazareth Baptist Church. From that On the Table in November of last year, we went back to church and formed a social justice ministry in the church as of April this year. So Nazareth Baptist Church Social Justice Ministry is going to host an On the Table on October 23rd in collaboration with the Southern Anti-Racism Network. And the thing that really struck me in the reports that came out from the On the Table last November is that education and crime were the hot issues. And I say I come before you today with that same intersectionality of education and crime as it relates to the crime prevention money. When I applied for the crime prevention grant, which I learned is not a grant at all, it's actually contracts between the city manager and the mayor. And what I brought today is like 22 copies of the mayor's agenda from 7/12/16, where people voted unanimously to give $88,000 to Georgia Appleseed. It is part of a long list of monies to Georgia Appleseed. Georgia Appleseed received $83,500 in 2013. In 2014, 2 awards, $31,000 and $90,000, for a total of $121,000 in 2014. In 2015, Georgia Appleseed received $95,000. In the final year, 2016, Georgia Appleseed received $88,000. And what I have here is the documents from the clerk of council, because I did request these records. I was so curious about what I termed an unethical, incestuous patronage scheme I had never seen before. And I think that the fact that no one ever recuses themselves in the so-called grant-making process, the Muskogee County School District has a permanent seat on the Crime Prevention Board. Mr. Blackwell sat there year after year and approved these monies for Georgia Appleseed, which is a contract that says that they will work with the Muskogee County School District in order to plug the school-to-prison pipeline, and specifically to work on the positive behavior intervention and support. Oh, I will come back before council in January, because I did speak to then Councilmember Henderson about this problem last October when I called for an investigation. And given that the mayor's signature is on this contract, I think she'd have to recuse herself. And so I think that the best way to deal with the investigation is in January, before the next grants are due, because there are 2 driving principles here, good people. The tax money that's paid here in Columbus should be for organizations and groups in Columbus. Big nonprofits like Georgia Appleseed should not be able to come from Atlanta into Columbus and take this much money out. And Sharon Hill, who was the CEO of Georgia Appleseed, and just to tell you how rotten it is, they walked away from Columbus as of June 30th, 2017, with their pockets full. Tremaine, AKA Teddy Reese.
If that's your 5 minutes, I'm going to put another 5
Thank
minutes
you.
on.
He was the only staff person here. His supervisor, Rob Rhodes, and I regret the day that I brought Rob Rhodes into Columbus, because he said to me in 2012, when he knew he was starting to come after this money, Teresa, we can get some money, but you need to change the name of that organization, anti-racism. That's going to be a problem for trying to raise money in Columbus, because there's a lot of racism in Columbus. I said, look, let me tell you something. And this year, we start celebrating our 20th anniversary. I've been raising money all over the country And no one has ever asked me to change the name of my organization before until Rob Rhodes of Georgia Appleseed. I took him with 2 board members from Columbus into Atlanta, met with Sharon Hill, and told her what I thought about them, and whatever money they could get, I wanted nothing to do with it. And so changed the name of my organization in order to raise money. Okay, this is what I know, because I spoke directly to Sharon Hill on June 7th, 2017. We were at a meeting together in Macon, Georgia, for juvenile justice reform, because all of us are in a statewide coalition called Just Georgia. All of us worked around the juvenile justice reform that happened just a few years ago. And she said to me, Teresa, Rob is leaving, Teddy's leaving, and I'm leaving too. And I said, wait a minute now, y'all took all that money and now you're leaving too? She said, yeah, I'm going to Asheville, North Carolina, up in the mountains, work on environmental justice. So everybody associated with this money that was taken out of Columbus is no longer at Georgia Appleseed. Several of the people in the Muskogee County School District are no longer there. Melvin Blackwell's no longer there. Tammy Clark, who was the PBIS person at the Muskogee County School District, when I said to her, Tammy, I came to all the PBIS meetings, all the Project Aware meetings, I never saw anything that Georgia Appleseed was doing. What did they do that I didn't see? And her response to me, exact words, I don't know what they did with the money. Well, I don't either. Because when you look at the suspension data, Brittany, is that what you passed out to everybody? The suspension data. Well, that is what you have to know. And this has been consistent from 2014 when the PBIS program started. 54% of all the students at the Baker Middle School were suspended last year. Those 300 students arrested coming from these schools here. The prison pipeline is on steroids in the Muskogee County School District, and I'm considered a bit of an expert on the issue of the prison pipeline. Been working on it for 20 years. So when you look at this data, you see a whole lot of red ink. See, what I do is I get the records from the Muskogee County School District. They're too sorry to do this for themselves, so I send it to my data analyst specialist, works for Duke University in Durham, North Carolina, and she does what she calls crunches the numbers. So she takes the data, and trust me, there's no dispute about the accuracy of this. I passed it out at the school board meeting last night, and nobody said anything was wrong with it. They sat up there and looked at me like ornaments, like they have for 7 years. But I'm fighting for the kids. I'm fighting for the kids. The Southern Anti-Racism Network is here to stay. I came here on a 5-year plan to build the organization. I'm going to be here at least 10 years. But the organization is here to stay, and I'm committed to these poor Black students who are being pushed into the prison pipeline. It's academic genocide. And I told them that to their faces last night at the school board meeting, Madam Mayor. I know you tried to do a lot of good things, but this scheme, called the crime prevention money, has no strategic focus. In every place in the funding world now, everybody who gives out money in a geographic area, they ask the people to work together. You got over 70% of the money that's given out is for education. And I heard that directly from Seth Brown.
And
I'll come back in
time is
January.
run. Yeah.
I'll come back in January.
Okay,
but
thank you.
everybody gets my point, I hope.
Yes, thank you so much.
You've got to do better about giving away this much money in a single area for education.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Alameen. Thank you. All right. What we try to do, and Bruce, if you turn on the podium, please. We normally don't allow folks to get up and impugn specific names and actions of people who are not here to defend themselves. However, because Georgia Appleseed and Sharon Hill has taken public monies, I did allow the criticism, but I'm going to ask Seth Brown, since our process was brought into question and also some particulars related to this grant, if you could clear up anything, please.
Yes, ma'am. Well, the way as everyone here knows, the way the grant works is the program has to be held within Muskogee County borders. The children that we treat have to be in Muskogee County. The money was all here, and that money went towards Teddy Reese and the operation of the office, who's an attorney, and the supplies that they did. That's the first thing. PBIS, which is Positive Behavioral Intervention Systems, it is a program that it's not just in Columbus, it's nationwide. It is a system to change the mindset of the children as far as punishment and expulsions and that thing. And it's also even bigger to train the children, the teachers, to try to prevent that expulsion, suspension kind of behavior. Hey, this kid's acting up in my class, we're just going to remove the child from the classroom. What we've seen is we have seen some schools that have been extremely successful. We've seen some that haven't been as successful. Tammy Clark is gone. She is correct. Tammy Clark went to a state-level job. She got a better opportunity. She left Muskogee County. Melvin Blackwell is gone. He retired. Teddy Reese still works in Muskogee County. He does a lot of stuff for the city of Columbus as far as working with organizations and boards. The reason Teddy left Appleseed, he had a child. His wife is a doctor, a practicing physician here in town. He was spending too much time on the road. He came to me about a year beforehand, said, Seth, I just don't know if I can juggle the two jobs because I'm moving around so much, and I think I'm going to have to leave Appleseed. And I said, well, I hate to hear that, but look, I got two kids. I completely understand why you would put your kids first. Let's see.
Was the grant completed?
Yes, ma'am. We're a year to year, and she's correct. There is a contract. There's a contract that we have them sign that maintains them in certain areas. Insurance, requirements, background checks, that kind of stuff that they have to have on file. So we have a legal contract in effect to basically assure they uphold their standards or our requirements as a city.
So whatever it is the grant was for was completed?
Yes, ma'am.
You and your board signed off on the terms
Yep.
having been completed?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And it's a year-to-year thing. So, and as again, the money stays in Muskogee County. There's no money that leaves. There's no, Sharon Hill was never paid. And she's incorrect on Rob Rhodes. That was not Teddy's supervisor. It was Sharon Hill. Rob Rhodes was a part-time Georgia Appleseed person in Columbus, Georgia, and he was traveling back and forth to Atlanta. He was operating here about 2 days a week. And Rob and I had met probably 7 years ago. We met at Marshall Middle School at the time, and he said, you know, it'd be great if we could get a full-time representative in Columbus, Georgia. He said, we have a suspension expulsion problem. I said, well, Rob, that's one of the characteristics in our body of how we were created, was that we would try to reduce the level of suspensions and expulsions in Columbus, Georgia, because we do and did have a problem. And so that's when they decided to recruit an individual to come to the Columbus area to do that. And I said, look, if you put something together and present it to the Office of Crime Prevention, the board may approve funding for this. And sure enough, they did.
Okay. Let me ask you this, Seth, and
Yes,
I'm sorry, I know you come and you ask for your grant, so I'm not asking you to go through the whole thing, but I know you're very proud of the fact that there's a matrix by which your board judges success of any grant. Some are hit the mark, some don't. Did this particular grant have a matrix applied to it after the fact that the board reviewed?
Yes.
Okay.
And most of it, Mayor, is hands-on. It's, you know, at one time, we just had the grading process, and the board felt like that was too vague, that easily numbers could be manipulated or whatever the case was in order to make things look better than they actually were. The grading process now is about their reports that are turned in, but it's also hands-on. I have several board members that physically go to those programs to see them. I also go. We also take, like with the school board, or with the PBIS system, I actually went through their PBIS training because I was like, okay, this is a big deal. I at least want to know what it is. So I spent 3 days going through that training myself. I don't remember any of it because it was 5 years ago, but I did go through it. We also spoke with people within the school system to say, okay, is this program working? Do you see the effects of it? And Tammy Clark, if she was still here, will tell you that the PBIS program is a very long-term project. She said it typically takes 5 years to see any results because you are literally changing the entire mindset of those teachers who have become accustomed to removing the child from the class. And we know when we do that, we make those children that much more at risk because we're basically putting them out of the school. So the goal is to reduce that mindset of it's easier just to get them out and me not have to deal with them.
Great. So thank you very much. I
Yes, ma'am.
appreciate you coming forward, and that will conclude our public agenda.
Okay.
So
Thank
thank
you,
you. And we will, no ma'am, out of order. I appreciate that, but you can get back on. I know you said you're going to come January. You come, okay. All right, we've got, next we have Angelica Alexander, our finance director, wants to give us an amnesty update on demolition liens.
Hello again. So back on the 24th of July, council approved September 2018 as Amnesty Month on demolition liens. Since then, we've placed advertisement in the newspaper that ran on Sunday's paper on August the 26th. We also have a commercial that's running consistently on CCG TV, as well as a Q&A session that was completed by our Director of Inspections and Code, John Hutchinson, and our Revenue Manager, Yvonne Ivy. And what I like to do really quickly is just show the commercial that's running on CCG TV. It's 48 seconds.
Hello, I'm John Hutchinson, the Director of Inspections and Codes. Did you know that the Columbus Consolidated Government has designated September 2018 as Amnesty Month for outstanding demolition liens? Individuals and businesses will be able to pay off demolition liens without paying accrued penalties and interest. The principal amount of the outstanding demolition lien must be paid in full between September 1 and September 30th, 2018. All other city liens on the property, including property tax liens, must also be satisfied and paid in full. Proof of payment or cancellation of record will be required. To take advantage of this great opportunity, interested parties should contact the Finance Department Revenue Division at 706-653-4100 for additional information. Thank you.
And so thus far this month, we've had 2 individuals take advantage of the amnesty program. The total amount on the books for these 2 properties was $11,753.61, with the interest and penalty waiver of $3,417.55. So the amount paid under the amnesty program was $8,336.06. And as you know, currently, before the month of September, we had about $2 million on the books in demolition liens, and about $1 million of that was in interest. So that's it.
Okay. Any questions related to this program? We have Councilor Tom.
Social media sites, word of this out there, and I would suggest that maybe that be redone several times so that people will be sure to catch it. I did have a conversation yesterday, I think it was, with someone who has some of these liens, and he said, so why are you doing this? I said, because so often the value of the property is less than the penalties and so forth. And so he said, oh, I'm going to look into that. So at any rate, if we could continue to do this on some of the social media sites to get it out, I think it would be helpful so that the citizens will hopefully see it and take advantage of it.
Great.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I believe that concludes our agenda for the day. Obviously, we can't move to adjourn. We don't have a quorum, but we can, that person that is presiding can object with, or can adjourn without an objection. So we will do so, and we will see you all in 2 weeks. Thank you so much. We're adjourned.